because
Look at the
Anomaly told me about this book, New Lies for Old, written by
Can you hold it up?
Anatoly.
Or Jack.
You hold it up.
Yeah.
Anatoly Golitsyn.
Yeah, and he said that when the communists come in and take over, what they tell people is pretty much trust the plan.
And the election of 2020 is going bye-bye. It was an attack by other country, communism coming in. I don't know what they're going to do with it after they pull it down, but it's
but hang on a second.
Hold on. Donald Trump will be back in office in August.
No, you pretend like you believe what they do, so they will like you and they will support you and they will make you their leader. Now, once you're in power, you can bring into effect all of the things we want, and they can't do anything about it. And even though they can see you doing it, they still remember you as their leader, and they will follow you anyway. This is Lenin. Okay, that's important for Americans today to understand that, because that strategy has not changed at all. In fact, if anything, they polished it and perfected it to a fine quality today. And if people don't understand the concept of controlled opposition, they will never be able to understand the war that we're involved in. They certainly won't be able to win that war. Okay.
What's going on, everybody? Today is not for the faint of heart. We're going to weigh in the options and explore, is Donald Trump controlled opposition on the Bolshevik side? It sounds crazy, but there's a lot of similarities, stuff that he's been doing, did when he was in office. And I just want to make this point that I think that, a lot of people will say, well, what's the solution? They freak out when I talk about this. The solution is to know what's going on, because if you think Mitt Romney is going to beat Barack Obama and fight the deep state or whatever, it's not going to happen. Lying to yourself about this stuff is not the solution. So I don't know who told everybody to just put their head in the sand and that's the only way to beat the left. It's not true. I'm going to try to be calm and very reasonable today. And all I ask for before we start the show is your consideration. Just consider what I'm saying. I'm not asking you not to vote. I'm not asking you to like Joe Biden. I don't think you should. Go vote for Trump. If that's what you want to do and your convictions there, absolutely. I understand it. I think there's benefit there. But people need to pay attention to what's going on, because they do something called the Overton window, where they move the slippery slope so far towards insanity that nobody does anything about it. And if everybody's just chasing politicians and political plots, they're always going to be 5 to 15 years behind of what's going on. And it's time to really address this stuff. So that's the show for today. Is Donald Trump Bolshevik controlled opposition? I have a lot of interesting examples. God bless you. Give me a thumbs up in the comment before we start. Dream Rare podcast starts now. Thanks for being here.
It's the Dream Rare Podcast. Welcome to the show. The way to get the news at the desk or on the road. Let's go. God is great and success in our control. The world is crazy, but we get better from obstacles. Yeah.
What's going on, everybody? Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you. John, in the comments on Facebook, he said, is anomaly controlled opposition? Think whatever you want, John, but promise me that you think for yourself and you don't just chase the tail of a politician. Because if you know things for yourself, if you're honest with yourself, then nobody can trick you. Not me, not Trump, not a Democrat, nobody. So that's all I ask for this show, is to give me your consideration, listen to what I'm saying, consider it, and then move about your day. I don't really care what you perceive or what you think. So before we start, I have a few videos I really want to play. I just want to point out 2 crazy things that Trump did that nobody ever talks about. And the part that bothers me about this is not simply just that he did it, just the fact that so many people in Republican media, Republican politics, and the fan base, they seem just genuinely uninterested in this. I believe personally that the influencers don't want to talk about this because that will lose them a seat at the table. I'm just kind of confused why people that just support and vote, why they don't want to talk about this. I know a lot of people do, but I would say a majority of conservatives and Republicans and Trump supporters want to act like this never happened. And I think, a lot of people follow me in the conservative media influencer world. They've seen me post this about 30 times. It's probably gotten millions of views on Twitter and other social platforms, but they have to act like it doesn't exist. But here's the thing. If it is true what I'm saying and nobody talks about it, why would it stop? I believe that people do have power. Our consciousness, our influence, our purchasing power, all of these are our power. It's the only way to save the country is by just being honest about this stuff. And if Republicans can't do that, I just don't understand why anything's going to change. So let me show you the first one. This is from 2018 on the left. Is an article that says Bill Gates said that he got Trump super interested in a universal flu vaccine. Wouldn't you love to have the universal flu vaccine be something that really got kicked off and energized by you? Bill Gates told somebody that he recalled asking President Trump. So he went to Trump and he said, don't you want to be the guy that kicks off the universal flu vaccine? And that came out in 2018. The reason that you know that this is true is not because the media said it or Bill Gates said it, but in 2019, Trump signed an executive order for modernizing influenza vaccines, and it almost mirrored exactly what Bill Gates told Trump to do in 2018. So, I don't care who you believe, me, Trump, whatever. It's pretty obvious if Bill Gates comes to the press in 2018, right? And he says, I told Trump to do a universal flu vaccine. I said, shouldn't you be the guy that does it? This is in 2018. Bill Gates says that. All right, I don't know if he's telling the truth or not. It's Bill Gates, but if he says he's trying to get Trump to do a universal flu vaccine and he had a meeting with him, and then Trump, in a year and a half later, pushes the exact same rhetoric through an executive order for Big Pharma and brings together 8 agencies of government to do so, including a task force, it's probably true, unless you think that Trump just magically thought of a universal flu vaccine by himself and that Bill Gates telling him to do that had nothing to do with it. I mean, it's pretty obvious that Trump and Bill Gates worked together on that universal flu vaccine. And Bill Gates even said that Trump tried to hire him for the White House as a science advisor, and he declined. So here's my question to everybody in the conservative movement. This includes everybody who interviews Trump, people like David Harris and stuff. I mentioned to him this when we chatted. God bless him, but I know he talks to the president sometimes. How come nobody asked him this question? Like, it seems pretty important because most Republicans, Trump supporters, conservatives, they think that they're like fighting the Bill Gates agenda or whatever, but most of the people that they're supporting and worshiping are directly working with Bill Gates. Recently, Doug Burgum was tweeted by Jason Miller, Citizen Free Press, who's just slobbering over Trump all the time, and said, oh my gosh, the MAGA Avengers. Oh my gosh, it's Vivek, Tim Scott, Doug Burgum, and Donald Trump. Doug Burgum took $100,000 from Bill Gates to run for office and has meetings with him and posts them on Facebook. So he basically, in my opinion, you take money, you're doing something for the money. He's probably very aligned with Bill Gates. So this is the point about controlled opposition. If you think the right's fighting the left, but the right's working with the left, or you think Donald Trump's taking on the Bill Gates agenda when he's literally implementing the Bill Gates agenda, it's pretty important. Not asking you not to vote for him, but does anybody care? Like, I care. I didn't like Trump because I thought he was implementing Bill Gates's, vaccine agenda, but it seems that that's true. And nobody wants to ask him the question. Why? I think everybody's afraid of getting Candace Owens in their own way. Candace figured out what Daily Wire's line is, and everybody knows what Trump's line is. So everybody just acts like it didn't happen. It's not a small thing. He's a huge power player in the world, and Trump is basically working with him, and nobody cares. And everybody's just dreaming that Trump's taking on Bill Gates when he's literally like friends with him and working with him. It's very strange. Here's another important piece of information that everybody just likes to ignore, and it's finally coming into mainstream conversation in 2024, because without the First Amendment, the entire country is going to go to crap, and the communist, Bolshevik, fascist, whatever you want to call it, regime will win if they can subvert the First Amendment. There is no opposition to the First Amendment besides Thomas Massie because Donald Trump and Ron DeSantis are fake opposition. They both signed anti-First Amendment legislation for one group, one religion, one race, and one country. It creates a list of hate speech phrases that is known as the IHRA definition of anti-Semitism. It's being passed into almost every state. It's been passed into Argentina. I mean, Google IHRA definition of anti-Semitism. Pick a state, pick a country, pick a county. It's probably passed. All right. They're passing these anti-free speech legislation under the guise of fighting hate, which is the same thing the left does. The interesting part, which I'll show you guys later, is it seems like I only know so much because there's certain books that I've read and other things that I have to do a little more research on before I could tell you with 100% certainty, which I can on some stuff. But on this, it was brought to my attention that Alexander Solzhenitsyn, I believe his name is, I don't know how to pronounce it. He's like a Russian. He's a very famous author who wrote about the Bolsheviks. And, I'm pretty sure he sold millions of copies. Solzhenitsyn, I don't know how to pronounce the last name. Alexander Solzhenitsyn, whatever. Apparently in his book, he was mentioning that the Bolsheviks were passing anti-Semitism laws as well, but with stricter penalties. So they were also fighting anti-Semitism because Lenin and other Bolsheviks happened to be Jewish. So I guess when people were not happy with what the Bolsheviks were doing, they perceived it as anti-Semitism. The same way, I'm not saying that they are Bolsheviks, but I'm just saying the same way that when Trump or Tom Cotton, even though they're passing these anti-Semitism hate speech laws constantly, when they talk about George Soros or anybody that happens to be Jewish, they're accused by the press of being anti-Semitic. It seems almost like a bubble to stop anybody from really criticizing rich and powerful people who do, use their money to manipulate politics, but it creates almost like a law that gives it almost a definition of libel or defamation, like, oh yeah, what you're saying is like literally true, but also it's kind of like hate speech. And it's very similar to what the Bolsheviks were passing, except more extreme, in the 1900s, what they were doing. With that being said, I want to play this clip. It's 5 minutes long. It's a compilation I made. But before that, I just wanted to show you two things and why I'm saying it. I want to be very explanatory. I want to explain this stuff. I don't know if that's a word, but I want to explain why I'm doing this, because a lot of people will say, well, what's your solution? They get so upset when I point this stuff out. They act like, and I want to say this too, nobody wants a solution less than people that yell, what's the solution in the comment section? Because I could ask you a question too, like, what's your solution? It's like, just keep lying to yourself, just keep picking a party and letting the Republican Party infringe on the First Amendment and turn into vaccine socialists and print more money than Obama. It's not sustainable. And the only way it's going to change is that people need to realize what's going on. The reason that nothing changes is because the left hates the right hates the left, and they both tell themselves, well, I got to choose this party because it's the best option, and I don't want to say anything about what they're doing because it might hurt their chances. And the cycle continues. I'm not telling people not to vote. I'm not telling people not to, support Republicans if they want to do that locally or nationally. I'm just saying you got to double task, because if you're just supporting and not asking these questions, it's happening whether you know it or not. So the solution definitely isn't what's going on right now. To me, the solution is peaceful. I'm not yelling up in arms or trying to make everyone crazy. It's a simple, peaceful solution that Republicans, conservatives, libertarians, and even liberals, if they ever wake up, I don't know if that's possible at this point, but pay attention. And if your president infringes on the First Amendment or does a deal with Bill Gates, essentially, or allegedly, and you don't care about it, like, do you not realize that that's crazy? They just slowly move the Overton window towards insanity. So you're like, oh, that's not a big deal. The First Amendment's not a big deal to you? What do you like this? Both parties knew this 40 years ago. You couldn't run on the principle of what Trump is doing. You'd get laughed out of Washington. But now things are so crazy that you're like, I got to go to him. Why? Because I got to fight the inflation. The inflation that he helped cause? Biden sucks. I hope he loses, but Trump helped cause the inflation. Like, you don't even realize that because of the two party. Well, I just see it now. Well, it doesn't happen overnight, but when you print $5-6 trillion, it's going to trickle in, and the prices aren't going back. Trump could do a few moves that make things better, but the prices aren't going back to what they were. You got to stop printing the money. Before I play the clip, real quick, it's like these omnibus bills. When people in the 20s and 30s and 40s, when income tax was still like not that, huge, and people were like not that distrustful of the government as much as they are now, maybe, a lot of this stuff could have never flew. But now it's like they just use the two-party system to make things crazier and crazier. Obama signed every omnibus bill. Trump signed every omnibus bill. Biden signs every omnibus bill. They're just printing money. Now that COVID happened, they know everybody's crazy. They're like, print. And they're all just printing money. And you're fighting over Trump and Biden. They don't care because they're shifting perception of society to like, they're going to fight over Trump or DeSantis and Trump and Biden. And they're not going to realize that we've just been printing money more and more and more and more and more. And we'll just keep printing more and more money because these people can't figure it out, or they believe that their president's going to stop it, even though he didn't last time. And he has no plans to stop printing all that money. So it's just like, it's a perception game. I'm not blaming one politician. I'm just saying it is perception to shift the Overton window so far towards crazy that you don't even think it's a big deal to vote for a president who printed more money than Obama, helped cause the inflation, locked down the country, told Sweden to lock down, became a vaccine socialist, did a universal flu vaccine idea for Bill Gates, 6 months before the pandemic, and infringes on the First Amendment. And that's okay. It's only okay because they have a hero villain, WWE. He's the star. He's the bad guy. He's the good cop. He's the bad cop. And both sides can't lower their ego to admit that they got played in some sort of way. As G. Edward Griffin said in the intro, Leninism is controlling both sides. Of course, it seems like it's not that way, but that's controlled opposition. They can't give you 2 Joe Bidens, like everyone would see through that, or 2 Obamas. You got to have one guy wearing a cowboy hat like Mike Johnson selling out the country, and then one person pretending to stand up for black people like Nancy Pelosi. Like, it only works if there's a dynamic between the 2 parties. I'm going to play this clip. I told Roseanne when I was on her show about this book, Operation Trust, which talked about pretty much the exact QAnon thing 100 years ago. They said to control the opposition, they were going to let military generals and top people tell people to not believe their eyes, don't believe the infiltration of communism, just trust the plan that they're secretly being beaten behind the scenes, which is like literally a copy-paste controlled opposition, counterintelligence operation Bolsheviks ran 100 years ago. QAnon, I'm not saying that's what it is, but it literally is that, whether it meant to be or not. Here's just a 5-minute clip. I told Roseanne, she mentioned it on a different podcast, and this is an older video where I showed you some of the breakdowns and actual clips from the book that talks about, Operation Trust. And this was written 100 years before QAnon ever came to popularity. Take a watch.
War. This is a spiritual war.
This is a God
This
war.
is cool.
And this is very important because Anomaly told me about this book, New Lies for Old, written by
Can you hold it up?
Anatoly.
Or Jack.
You hold it up.
Yeah. Anatoly Golitsyn.
Yeah, and he said that when the communists come in and take over, what they tell people is pretty much trust the plan.
Right. Trust the plan.
And they say that there's generals that are going to make everything right. You don't need to worry or do nothing. And that really woke me up.
Me too.
Because I was like, oh my God, I've been trust the plan for too long.
Trust the plan. Everything's going to be taken care of. The white hats are coming. Panic in D.C. White to black. Right?
Yeah.
Trust the
And
plan.
So now I'm like, oh my God, I just got woke.
And what you realize,
there's nobody coming. General Flynn says that. There's nobody coming.
That's right.
Well, we're coming.
Just us.
And hell's coming with us.
That's called a Pied Piper operation.
Yeah.
So that's a Pied Piper operation. So they suck you in and they string you along and they say, don't worry.
They definitely went after Christians.
Of course.
With that.
That's why they use the Christian.
Great article came out recently, said QAnon bears striking resemblance to Bolshevik psyop from the 1920s known as Operation Trust. Operation Trust was a Bolshevik counterintelligence operation run from 1921 to 1926 aimed at neutralizing opposition by creating the false impression that a powerful group of military leaders had organized to stop the communist takeover. Doesn't that sound familiar? In this book, it talked about how they used generals that people trusted and how they dupe people. Let's look. They convinced the leaders that the regime had undergone a radical change. Communism had completely failed. Ideology was dead. The present leaders had nothing in common with the fanatical revolutionaries of the past. These agents confided in their contacts that the anti-Soviet monarchist movement that they represented had penetrated into the higher levels of the army, the security service, and even the government, and in time would take power and restore the monarchy. Sounds exactly like one of the biggest fake theories in the right-wing movement right now. You could also read more about it. One of the biggest breakout stars over the last few months in the conspiracy theory realm is Simon Parks, who's been getting millions of views convincing people that there's a secret sting operation to save them and that FEMA camps and militarized streets are actually really good. Take a look.
And to what Americans called Gitmo. And we don't call it that in the United Kingdom, we call it Guantanamo Bay. But that's because we're British. Yeah. But the point here is that those FEMA camps that are there at the moment are for the bad guys. They're not for the good guys. So you shouldn't have any concerns. If you've seen regular armed United States soldiers on the streets, you shouldn't have any concern. But 193,000 arrest warrants ready to roll. You're going to need those FEMA camps to put these people in. And as somebody said to me, there's a lot of fat cats in Washington, D.C. who are in for quite a rude awakening because it's not going to be the Hilton Hotel for them.
Exactly.
Of course, he's most likely lying. The FEMA camps are not to arrest your enemies. Why would they even have to put politicians in a FEMA camp? They have high-level facilities for that, if they were to do that. But the FEMA camps are actually the opposite of what he's saying, and they're being used for mass vaccination sites under a Joe Biden regime. People like William Cooper and Behold a Pale Horse used to try to warn people what happens under a national emergency and a FEMA takeover of the country. And for decades, conspiracy theorists, libertarians, and conservatives knew that an over-militarized government, FEMA camps, emergency declarations, lockdowns, and quarantines are not a great thing. That's not the good guys. That's government being too big, obviously. But Simon Parks, he says the exact opposite. And everybody trusts it because it sounds so good. There's a book that was written by a commie Bolshevik defector. His name is Golitsyn. He wrote a book called New Lies for the Old in like the 20s. And he talked about communism.
Yeah.
And like kind of blew the whistle on it, or I don't know, just wrote about his experiences.
It's an upside down Ponzi scheme.
Yep.
And in that book, he talked about a controlled opposition scheme. It was called Operation Trust. And in Bolshevikism, they told conservatives and patriots that there were generals doing stuff. So it's literally in the book. I own it. And he said, like, when you see communism invading your town, don't trip out about it because the generals will fix it. So like it kind of just dociled the people that would have normally opposed it. And it was called Operation Trust. And it seems very similar to QAnon. So that's where I'm not saying it necessarily is.
I'm not getting that. Tell me more.
It was the Bolshevik regime used a controlled opposition, like a counterintelligence scheme, to tell the conservatives, the patriots, the people that weren't commies, be like, don't believe your own eyes because there's generals behind the scenes fixing it. So
That
like
is
when communism is entering, don't do anything about it. You don't have to like oppose it because it's being fixed, but you just can't see it.
So you're insinuating that the Q movement is
I just think it sounds
A
similar,
psyop
but
is a psyop.
I think it sounds similar, and just with Trump in general, I think that one of the best things about him, besides his foreign policy, the fact that he's a man and he doesn't like fall asleep, is the fact that he actually has proven that he does listen and, like you said, like a populist. But I feel like now so many people just agree with everything he says that he doesn't feel the need to even. So if you guys are following that book, New Lies for the Old, it was written like 100 years ago from a communist defector. And he said, basically, the communists ran a counterintelligence controlled opposition scheme called Operation Trust, where they told patriots, libertarians, freedom fighters, people who like their country, nationalists, don't believe your own eyes. It looks bad, but it's not that bad. You just trust the plan. There's generals behind the scenes, taking over the communists. You just can't see it, but just trust me that it's happening. It's literally the exact same thing as QAnon. And, people are so naive in the Republican movement. I'm not saying Mike Lindell's a bad guy, but there's an old saying, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. Fool me 5,000 times, put on a cowboy hat and go to a rally. Yeehaw, patriot. Here's Mike Lindell a couple years ago saying that Trump was going to be back in August. And I'm not saying to hate the guy or anything. He's a pillow salesman. He's a patriot or whatever. But it's like when he said this, I knew he was lying then. It's like, I just don't listen to the guy anymore. I don't need to listen to people who lie to me. Someone said, how do I know, Anomaly, you're not controlled? Listen to what I'm saying. Look at my track record. Consider what I'm saying. What am I saying? When I point out that Trump did a deal with Bill Gates, why am I the only person pointing that out? Why does nobody care? When Trump infringes on the First Amendment, why does nobody talk about it? I'm not asking you to give your loyalty and trust to me forever. I'm asking you to listen, use your critical thinking skills, and figure it out for yourself. Because whether I'm here or not, I just wish more people knew this stuff so then the country could be fixed. But here's Mike Lindell lying through his teeth, and yet people still think he's like some truth teller. It's ridiculous.
And the election of 2020 is going bye-bye. It was an attack by other country, communism coming in. I don't know what they're going to do with it after they pull it down, but it's
hang on a second.
Hold on. Donald Trump will be back in office in August.
Donald Trump will be back in office in August. Trust the plan, patriots. Donald Trump. Like, you got to, I'm sorry, but you got to be pretty dumb to like listen to a guy like, and you're like, oh, dude, this guy's so smart. He's so honest. Mike Lindell, oh yeah, Donald Trump gonna be back in. He's like someone's drunk boomer uncle that like, doesn't know anything. They're just yelling at like, the hot dog, like the July 4th picnic or whatever. It's just like, Donald Trump's got to be back in August. And then there's like so many people that are like, I get all my news from Cat Turd, Mike Lindell, Kerry Lake. It's like when I see people retweeting Mike Lindell and Kerry Lake and Cat Turd and Benny Johnson, I look at it the same way I look at someone retweeting Rachel Maddow. I don't dislike them as people. I'm just like, oh my gosh, these people are brainwashed. Like, Republicans just can't understand that their brains are also being fried, because they're like, well, he's fighting the left. He's fighting the left by telling you that Donald Trump's going to be back in office in August when that's not even remotely true. Like, how is he fighting the left by lying to you, wasting your time, and telling you to believe something that's literally not true? And you should know that that's not true from the beginning. But if you didn't know when he said that it wasn't true, all you had to do is wait till September, look at a calendar, and realize that he was wrong. And everyone will be like, everybody makes mistakes. Of course, I'm not asking people to be perfect, but do politicians make mistakes by hiring pharmaceutical lobbyists by a mistake? It's not a mistake. They're getting paid to do so. I'm not saying Mike is. I don't know what his intentions are. It's just I respect myself, so I don't listen to him, because it's like, once you lie to me and constantly make up Q-esque like hope copes, it's just like there's other people out there that I respect more, at least believe more, to waste my time on. Speaking of which, I want to read something that someone brought to my attention from the Alexander, I think it's Solzhenitsyn. Apparently, the Bolsheviks had very strict anti-Semitism laws, which is why I find it fascinating that the whole Republican Party is just like jumping at the gills to sell out the First Amendment. They're all signing papers every week now. And it's so funny because a lot of them that are signing the papers, they're always the ones that are getting lobbied. They'll be like, I stand with Israel. That's amazing. God bless you. God bless Israel. But could you stand with Israel without getting paid by lobbyists? Because it seems like everybody who tweets that gets lobbying money. Like, when I speak, I'm not getting paid to say what I think, because I'm not controllable by money or finances. But every politician that tells you that they love other countries, it's like, if you love them so much, stop taking tens and hundreds of thousands of dollars from lobbyists to have that opinion. Because I'm not so sure at that point that you'd even have that opinion if you weren't getting paid to have that opinion. But anyway, how is selling out the First Amendment for one race, one religion, and one country going to help America? You find out it's not, but you also find out it's very similar to what the Bolsheviks were doing. So here's apparently a part of Solzhenitsyn's 200 Years Together, chapter 19. It says, in January 1931, the New York Times and later the entire world press published a sudden and ostentatious announcement by Stalin to the Jewish Telegraph Agency. The communists, as consistent internationalists, cannot help but be a reconcilable and sworn enemy of anti-Semitism. In the USSR, anti-Semitism is strictly prosecuted by law as a phenomenon deeply hostile to the Soviet order. Active anti-Semites are punished according to the laws of the USSR with the death penalty. See, he addressed the democratic West and did not mind specifying the punishment, and it was only one nationality in the USSR that was set apart by being granted such a protection, and world opinion was completely satisfied with that. One nationality being set apart with a granted special protection and prosecuting people that they deemed being hateful by hate speech. So let's give an example of that hatefulness. If the Bolsheviks are killing millions of people and you're like, you know what, I don't like that. Well, that might be hate speech. That might be hateful, that you just don't want to watch people just get massacred by a corrupt regime. And, talking about any of it can be deemed. It's the same way, like, the LGBT homosexual community uses homophobia as a shield. Are some people homophobic? Yes. If you're like, hey, I'm gay, and the guy goes, and he runs out the room, he's afraid of you. So technically phobia is fear. Homosexuality is gay. He's afraid of gays. Oh no, there's gays here. There's a homophobe, but sometimes, you'll have a weird teacher that's homosexual telling kids to be homosexual, and you say, hey, that's not cool, and they say, oh, you're homophobic. So it's used as a massive shield to then, either protect yourself as a group or an individual. When it's just you say, oh, you just hate me because I'm gay. Or when it's a whole group, you say, oh, you just hate us. So that's what homophobia is. It's a shield for the LGBTQ community to take no accountability for what they're doing as individuals or a group. And the word anti-Semitism, it's not a new word. I mean, if you listen to people, it's been happening for thousands of years, since the time of Jesus, apparently, because Jesus was like, now I'm gonna do it this way. And they were like, wow, that's so hateful or whatever. And then his followers were hateful. And, now thousands of years, you're all hateful or whatever. Trump's hateful. Tom Cotton's hateful. They passed the laws, but they're still breaking the laws because they're so broad or whatever. But anyway, isn't that interesting that Trump is essentially soft rolling Bolshevik speech laws into government. And all Republicans are. It's crazy. All you have to do is search IHRA, definition of anti-Semitism. It's being passed around the world in the country, and it's infringing on the First Amendment. But nobody seems to care. And I always ask myself, when they first passed it in 2019, I started making videos about this, and people told me, oh, it doesn't matter that much, just don't talk about it. It's not a big deal. I mean, okay, but like, why would you pass a speech law against the Constitution? Like, at what point are you going to use that law? You understand? It's like they might not use it now, but then it's like it goes further and further and further. Next thing you know, now they're trying to establish federal agencies to combat what they consider hate, which is, if you read the definition of what they consider hate, it's a phrases and opinions. And honestly, a lot of it is true. Not everything, but it's like sometimes you could say that guy owns a media company and he has this agenda. That could be considered hate speech, It's interesting stuff. I want to show you guys this real quick. So this is the tax bracket. This is just another thing that I always point out. In the Communist Manifesto, it says a heavy, progressive, or graduated income tax, because when the Communist Manifesto was written in America, there was no graduated income tax. Graduated income tax means increase it more the more you make, and 10% to 37% is insane. If you would have showed Karl Marx the income tax of America, he would have been like, wow, that's definitely communist. That's how you do it, But people don't even realize that it's happening because it's so normalized now. It goes further and further and further. And then people just fight over Trump and DeSantis, or Trump and Biden, or Biden and this. And everyone's having these like little goofy battles. It's like Trump and DeSantis. I never fought over them, not for 1 second. I mean, I had my opinions about who was better at what, but I told people it doesn't matter. They're both passing speech laws for their donors against the First Amendment to make it illegal to say that they're getting donor money to sell out the First Amendment, which is what they're doing. So why would I fight like an animal and a sheeple over two people selling out the First Amendment? That's what animals do. You know what I'm saying? I respect myself, but most Republicans, they just fight like little schoolgirls or schoolboys. It's like, oh my gosh, DeSantis, Trump, his shoes. It's like, what about the fact that they're both taking copious amounts of donor money and infringing on the First Amendment for one group, one race, and one country that is oddly similar to what the Bolsheviks did? Does that strike a... Sorry about that. I have that on my... it was bothering me, but like, no one notices that. No one cares about that. That makes me believe like maybe the elites are right. I'm not trying to say they are, but this is like a challenge to people. They think you're stupid. Are you stupid? I don't know. Like when I see people in the comment section, I'm mostly very grateful. I appreciate everybody. I got millions of awesome people, but sometimes people fight me in the comment section. I'm like, are you dumb? Like, do you not, like someone said, how do I know you're not controlled? I'm not asking you to fully trust me. Obviously I try to prove to you that I'm not, but I'm not begging every day. You have to trust me. I want to earn your trust through telling you the truth, by being authentic, by being 3 years ahead of mandatory vaccinations, by being right about lockdowns 4 months before Trump and 90% of Trump supporters. Like the actions speak for themselves. But if you can't figure it out, it is what it is. I'm not begging you to like donate to me like, oh, patriots, I'm going to sell out the First Amendment, but here, give me and Lara Trump a nickel so we can go fight the deep state or whatever. I mean, yeah, I have merch and stuff, but I'm just saying, like, I'm not sitting here begging for you to trust me. It's just like, do you hear what I'm saying? Is it true? Then it speaks for itself. I don't think you can ask somebody to believe you. You have to show them and be consistent enough. And, there's people that I like. I don't fully trust anyone, but, Dave Smith, Glenn Greenwald, Tucker Carlson, I'm not saying they're perfect on every issue, but they've earned my trust through being honest, and like over the course of time, 4 or 5 years, you look at everything they're saying and you're like, well, they're not stubborn to the point where if they do get something wrong, they'll tell the truth about it in a month or two and apologize like Tucker's done. There are people like that I really like. And then there's others that, like a Ben Shapiro, that seem consistently wrong about every issue all the time ever. And they only share your kind of core values sometimes, where I just specifically don't trust someone who was wrong about the vaccine and the third grade, math equation that he could have done in April of 2020. And he couldn't figure it out until 2022. Like, that's just me. Mike Lindell, I'm not saying I hate the guy, but it's like, if you say this to my face, and like, if you look in a camera looking like a crackhead uncle and just say like Trump's going to come back in August, it means you think I'm stupid. And no offense, most people that worship him and Carrie Lake and stuff, I'm not going to say they're stupid because I'm not trying to be rude, but like these people think you're stupid and you constantly prove them right. Like if I said Donald Trump's going to be back in August and he didn't come back in August, like wouldn't you not trust me? I would hope you it's the same with like if I sold Pfizer. I would hope you didn't trust me. I'm not like, oh, you should trust me forever. You should trust me as long as I seem trustworthy. If I stop seeming trustworthy, then like you shouldn't trust me based on that. It's not like, oh, if I took $1 million from Pfizer and sold them, you should still like me and say that I'm not sold out. Well, clearly I just sold out to Pfizer. Like, what are you talking about? Like, it's like this sort of stuff. Like these people think their audience is like super stupid, which is why they're accumulating an audience that I'm not saying they're dumb, but they're getting dumbed down by all these dumb accounts to the point where like trying to tell somebody brainwashed by Mike Lindell, Carrie Lake, Cat Turn, and Benny Johnson is as difficult to talk to as a Rachel Maddow supporter. Imagine trying to talk to someone who watches Rachel Maddow and be like, the First Amendment of the Constitution's good, and I think income tax should be lower. They look at you like you're a maniac. You can't, there's nothing you could do with these people. They're like mentally broken. It's the same thing with like people that worship Carrie Lake, Mike Lindell, QAnon, Trump, all these. It's like you can't really say any of this stuff to them or they like can't understand it. I'm not saying everybody, but a large portion. Like you look at their Twitter feed, they're freaking out at you and you're like, oh, this person's, they're broken. You know what I'm saying? They're brainwashed and they're going to have to wake up on their own time. It's not going to be when I ask them to. But like if someone says this to you, like, and you trust the vibes like this, I don't know what to tell you, to be honest.
And the election of 2020 is going bye-bye. It was an attack by other country, communism coming in. I don't know what they're going to do with it after they pull it down, but it's
hang on a second.
Hold on. Donald Trump will be back in office in August.
It is what it is, but it's like, is that person going to tell you that Trump is infringing on the First Amendment? No. All these people, they're just like characters in this weird plot that doesn't have anything to do with anything. And to me, the solution is realizing what's going on and just being a part of the solution. Like, for example, as a man or a woman, as an American, if you are, and you're conservative and you claim to be libertarian or pro-liberty, the First Amendment, I shouldn't even have to explain why it shouldn't be infringed on at all. And look at the slippery slope method or whatever you want to say of LGBT or BLM and all this stuff. They start small and then they roll the ball down the hill to the point where it's everywhere and you can't stop it. So like everybody should know at this point the slippery slope of anything. Like they start easy and then it gets crazy once you can't do anything about it, and then it's done and you wish you would have paid attention 10 years ago. The First Amendment and the Second Amendment, I shouldn't even have to explain why any infringements on it should be immediately countered, because once they normalize an infringement and nobody cares, they just keep pushing. Everybody knows that, right? Republicans are controlled opposition. It's not even debatable. Are they worth voting for? Possibly, but should you just ignore that they're infringing on the First Amendment? Because this is what the politicians and elites do. It's like a stress test. How dumb are people? How weak are people? How pathetic are people? Oh, we can infringe on the First Amendment and they won't even care if we point to Ilhan Omar or Palestine or whatever. Oh, okay. Well, let's just keep doing it more and more and more and more and more because these dummies don't even care. In fact, half of the people in conservative media, they'll say it's a good thing. It's like, and then it's the floodgates are open. That's what's going on. So I want to play a few more clips just of Jordan Peterson because I found this clip interesting. It doesn't really have much to do with this, but kind of. But before I do, I just kind of want to summarize. The title of the video was, "Is Trump Bolshevik controlled opposition?" I'm not going to tell you who Trump is in his heart or what he's going to do. I go based off of actions and what I see, and two things I see. I see him taking hundreds of millions of dollars from donors. He did that even in the last election after people stopped paying attention. Once he took the money, he sold his cabinet out. He said he would drain the swamp. He hired the swamp. He did deals with Bill Gates or talked to him and then passed it through executive order. He printed more money than Obama, caused inflation, constantly lies about it, did a worse job than DeSantis on COVID, lies about that, and gaslights everybody into thinking they did exactly the same when they didn't. And at that point, it's like, what can't he do? The opposition, like G. Edward Griffin said, I actually want to play that clip at the beginning again because I think he just totally nails it. And I think it's before I keep going, I got to play the other clips too, but how G. Edward Griffin talks about how Leninism needs to control the other side. And once they do, you can't even do anything about it. It's super interesting. So some people missed it because there's more people here, but I'll play it real quick. This was my intro video, then I'll keep going.
And this is very important because Anomaly told me about this book, New Lies for Old, written by
Can you hold it up?
Anatoly.
Or Jack.
You hold it up.
Yeah.
Anatoly Golitsyn.
Yeah, and he said that when the communists come in and take over, what they tell people is pretty much trust the plan.
And the election of 2020 is going bye-bye. It was an attack by other country, communism coming in. I don't know what they're going to do with it after they pull it down, but it's
hang on a second.
Hold on. Donald Trump will be back in office in August.
No, you pretend like you believe what they do, so they will like you and they will support you and they will make you their leader. Now, once you're in power, you can bring into effect all of the things we want, and they can't do anything about it. And even though they can see you doing it, they still remember you as their leader, and they will follow you anyway. This is Lenin. Okay, that's important for Americans today to understand that, because that strategy has not changed at all. In fact, if anything, they polished it and perfected it to a fine quality today. And if people don't understand the concept of controlled opposition, they will never be able to understand the war that we're involved in. They certainly won't be able to win that war. Okay.
I love what he says at the end there. He says, if people don't understand the concept of controlled opposition, understand G. Edward Griffin's 92. He's seen it all. He's read Marxist books, Leninist books. He really understands it. And Lenin, he explains quite thoroughly, was like a Marxist who was more crazy. Like, yeah, that's a good theory, but like, let's get it into power by any means necessary. Do this, do that, play both sides. People are doing that today. Obviously, you can't tell that. So if you can't understand that concept, how are you going to fix the concept? This is what I want to say before I play these clips of Peterson and just weigh in. People always, when I say this stuff, they say, well, somebody even said, vote for Joe Biden. No, like that. Is your IQ 5, 4? Are we in kindergarten? Does mommy and daddy need to pick you up in the short bus? Like, what's going on with you people? Like, no, I'm not voting. Like, talking about this doesn't mean you just vote for the other side. Either your brain is literally poop, like just scrambled inside of your head, or you're just like an emotional child, like, wah, wah, wah. It's like, grow up. No, I'm not. I don't want to vote for Biden. I'm not voting for Biden. Saying this stuff has nothing to do with that. It's just the truth. So this is the opposition that you face. Your own people will say, oh, so what's the solution? Oh, you don't have a solution. The solution is everything I'm saying. You just don't want to hear it. So then you project your own insecurities onto me and throw a little fit like a baby who poops his pants in the little car seat on the way to the mall. But it's like, okay, you'll get your little hamburger, Johnny and Susie. You'll get your little hamburger soon. Up. It's like, what are you, 45 years old, 60 years old? Grow up. But anyway, no, it's not a matter of, oh, well, I'll just vote the other way. Oh, just vote the other way. That's the opposite of the controlled opposition theory, is that you can't vote your way out of this. You could vote for Trump, but you're not voting your way out of this. You won the election in 2016. You beat Hillary Clinton. Oh my gosh, with Julian Assange, who then Trump hired people that wanted him in jail forever and tried to, according to Tucker Carlson, kill him or wanted him killed, and then printed more money than Obama, and then said that Sweden should have locked down in May, 2 months after the communist lockdown. And then he ran around selling pharmaceutical vaccines, inflating the currency. And now 3 years later, they tell you that only Democrats did that. People are like, but I'm voting for Trump because I want the prices to go back. They're not going back. The opposition's controlled. They're not going back. If you didn't want the prices to get where they're at, you had to stop them in 2020 from printing all that money. The only person who tried to stop them was Thomas Massie, and Donald Trump called him a third-rate grandstander and tried to kick him out of the Republican Party. When the leader of your party is controlled, you don't get good prices. Like, that's how dumb, no offense, a lot of Republican voters are. They're like, I remember the prices low when Trump was in. Yeah, I also remember 15 days to slow the spread, and 15 days to slow the spread plus the money printing and the money supply is why inflation's here today, on top of Biden digging the hole 20 feet deeper. You're not going back to that. If you wanted to stop the prices now, you had to do it in 2020. This is how things work. Politicians scam you, and then they pass the baton to the other party, and then they tell the Democrats who are stupid enough to believe them, Trump did that, and then Trump tells the Republicans that are stupid enough to believe him, Biden did that, and they're laughing hysterically together because they both did it together, and none of their supporters seem to realize because they're stuck under the two-party false paradigm system. The solution is to admit it's happening. You can go vote. I'm not saying to vote for Biden, and you can go vote for Trump, but your vote's not going to fix it. And until you realize that, it's not going to get fixed. These people are way smarter than you. And I'm starting to believe them when they think that you're animals and stupid. I'm not saying people are, and I'm not trying to be rude. It's more of like a challenge, like wake up. It's like your fighter's getting his ass beat in the 4th round. It's like, yo, are you the best in the world or not? You start talking a little shit so they, get it together and try a little bit harder. It's like, are you this dumb? You know what I'm saying? To not understand that concept? If you are, you're going to fail because they're thinking both parties. They're thinking lobbyists. They're thinking 100,000-year plans, and you're drooling out of your mouth saying MAGA. Like, wow, cool. You can't identify. You can't even identify that it's not okay for your candidates to sell out the First Amendment, or you're cool with it. Then you don't get free speech. And the same dummies on the right that are saying, oh, I don't care that Trump's selling out the First Amendment, or I don't want to look at it. Then when it's gone, they're going to be like, who did that? And all the Republicans are going to be like, the left. And Carrie Lake and Mike Lindell are going to point that way. And you guys are going to run like a bunch of cattle. It's like embarrassing. So, I'm not trying to be rude, but it's just the reality of the situation. The solution is not to lie to yourself. It would be like if there's a robber that came into your house and stole all your stuff, and I said, yo, that guy's stealing all your stuff. Are you going to stop him? And you go, oh, so what's your solution then? It's like, I just told you, he's stopped the guy, like tell him not to take your stuff, because then he'd leave probably. Like you're just letting him do it. Oh, what's your solution then, huh? I just said it. What's yours? I just said the solution. The solution is, if your politicians and your presidents are selling out the country, printing more money than Karl Marx on steroids, tell them to stop. If you don't tell them to stop, they're going to keep doing it because they don't have to. Like the Mike Lindells and the Carrie Lakes of the world are going to run people in circles around plots about this and that. And it's like, oh my gosh. Someone said in my comment section where they're like, how could that be true? I mean, it's like, I believe in WWE. I think politics is WWE, and it's mostly like pro wrestling. But, they are like coming after Trump really hard. It's like, for sure. But have you ever watched WWE? It's not like hero, and nobody gets persecuted. In order for there to be a plot, there needs to be a good cop and a bad cop, a hero and a villain. And the people who like the villain thinks he's a hero, and the people who like the hero thinks that the villain's the villain. So it's like, these are the games that they play. Of course, it seems that way, because if it didn't seem that way, you wouldn't believe it. And because you believe it, that's why nobody listens to the stuff that I'm saying. It's like the plot needs to be good, or nobody watches the show. The plot is extraordinarily good. It's not to say that Trump's never done anything right, or of course there's certain people who don't want him in. And of course there's Republicans who don't want Democrats in. There's donors that are dumping money into Trump because they want to beat Biden. And then there's donors dumping money into Biden to beat Trump. But it's up to you, if you want to be intelligent, to figure out why. Who's giving Trump the most money? Why? You think they're just patriots with a MAGA hat on? No, these people are playing society-shifting games. They're not just donating to Trump because they want a MAGA. Some people are, but a lot of them, if you do your research, you could find out exactly what they want. And a lot of times it aligns with the things that Trump is selling the country out for. Like, Trump is not into pharmaceuticals like that. He was a huge skeptic of vaccinations before he got into office. And now he won't even talk about the side effects because he's the father of the vaccine of Operation Warp Speed. And he used socialism to bring it to the country and printed money, all your taxpayer money that you're working so hard for and I'm working so hard for. When they take our money, tens of billions of dollars went to the pharmaceutical industry to fund that operation and then to buy the doses in order to even shove them down your throats like Biden did and Democrats did. They have to have them in the first place. Republicans, my best analogy is, if Democrats are going to hit you with a hammer, and we all know they're going to hit you with a hammer, Republicans weld the hammer, they mold the hammer, they fund the hammer, they buy the hammer, they give the hammer to the Democrats, they provide lawyers to protect them in court if they hit you with the hammer. Then Democrats hit you with the hammer, and dingbats like Carrie Lake and Mike Lindell say, oh, it was the left. I love Donald Trump. I do whatever he says. I have no brain. And you're like, oh, and then people are just drooling. And it's like, Did you miss the part where they did like steps 1 through 20 for the Democrats, and then at step 21 they just miraculously act like they're completely like not involved in the operation? It's insane. So the solution is to notice this stuff and call it out. They're never going to stop because no one cares. And I'll just say this before I play the clips of Peterson. When people say, "Oh, you're so pessimistic," it's like, no, you're just really weak. You're a weak person. A strong person says, I can impact the world. I'm not trying to change it and be like Genghis Khan or anything, but it's like, my job is not to be a fan or a stan or a pathetic little side character. Like, God put you in this life to be the person that you are, and God made everybody to do something, and everybody provides value. So it's like a strong person will be like, well, my job as an American is not to just cave for a politician. My job is to call it like I see it, like a real man. And a weak person says, what's the solution? Not what you're doing. That's the opposite of the solution. You have to call it out in order for it to stop. But it doesn't stop because everybody's so weak nowadays. And I'll just say this too, if you're confident in your own abilities in any aspect of life, it doesn't mean you have to join politics or start a media company. Like, everybody doesn't have to do that. But it would be nice if you paid attention a little bit and were honest about this, because things would shift. But most people, look at the country now. I'm not trying to be rude, but the country is weaker than it's ever been. It's more pathetic than it's ever been. It's fatter than it's ever been. Probably lazier than it's ever been. The kids are, more feminine than they've ever been. Like, the country's weaker than it's ever been. And obviously the left is really weak. We could point at it all day. Look how weak the left is. Hardy har har. But what about our side? Our side is also weakened and dumbed down. So a lot of the reason that people don't want to face this reality is because they're too weak and pathetic to want to do something about it. So it's easier for them to just sit on the couch, eat popcorn, and watch Donald Trump and fantasize that he's going to fix all their problems, even though he's not. The same way a bunch of like angry old women watch Rachel Maddow and, MSNBC, hoping that they could beat Donald Trump because he allegedly touched somebody 59 years ago, in this like in a hotel room or something. I'm not trying to be mean. I'm just saying, like, everybody wants to believe all these things because they're too afraid of the truth, and they're too afraid to actually be a part of something. And it's like, I didn't sit around and say like, oh yeah, I'll just lie to myself and that'll fix the country. I was like, what sucks the most, in my opinion? The media. The media is horrible. Left-wing media sucks. Right-wing media is fake. They're too angry. The energy's off. They're all selling pharmaceuticals. So I did my small part. At first it was small, and I said, I think I could do better than that. I didn't want to do media. I never wanted to do news. I don't like politics. I'd much rather just do music or something that I found more fun. But I was like, you know what? As an American citizen with the ability and the passion, I'm going to do a better job of the news, since they're lying so hard and trying to scam everybody. And I did do that. And that's just one small part, but a billion views, millions of years later, like, that's the impact that I'm trying to have. And yeah, I might have done a lot, but at the same time, it is what it is. Like, if everybody does a little or something, like I walked the walk. I saw the problem. I pointed it out, and I did better, and I countered it extraordinarily. And I'm still young, and I'm still going to do it. And I still have passion, but it can't be 50 million patriots just sitting there drooling, saying like, he'll fix it. At bare minimum, just like go to Turning Point USA and start letting people know that what they're doing. If you go and just cheer like it's the right fighting the left, you're incentivizing our demise. The solution is start being honest about this stuff, and it goes away. You don't have to start a media channel. You don't have to like be a politician. You just simply have to tell the truth. But nobody wants to tell the truth themselves anymore because it's scary, and it's just easier to live a lie. But then you live a lie and the country gets worse, and you're like, why did the country get worse? And some scammer tells you, oh, it's just the left, and you believe it because it makes sense. Well, the left sucks. They're the worst, so the right must be telling the truth. No, the Republican Party, even Trump this election, he's not running for you. He's running on behalf of donors to pass more speech laws for a foreign country. It's one of the most disgraceful things. He passes speech laws in America for a foreign country, one race, one religion, and it completely mimics, rules that the Bolsheviks had. He is obviously controlled opposition, but it's like, oh, what's your solution? Let me ask you, what's your solution? Is your solution to let Republicans shift the Overton window where the First Amendment gets used as toilet paper? Is your solution let Trump infringe on the Second Amendment? Say nothing. Is your solution watch him say that Sweden should lock down in May of 2020 when it's obviously a lie for communism? Is your solution to let him print $6 trillion and then claim that he's going to fight the inflation that he helped cause? And you think that only Biden did it and Trump's going to get it and the prices are going to go back down? The prices don't go back down. Maybe a little bit, like interest rates will go down, stocks will eventually go up, but the inflation is extraordinary. Like, do you say when is a pizza slice and an ice cream cone going to be 2 cents again? Your grandparents tell you that story of how cheap it was when they were young. It's never going back that way. You're never going to get an ice cream cone for 2 cents and a pizza pie for 10 cents. It's never going back that way. Inflation is escalating and they're printing trillions of dollars. Trump does it, Biden does it. It doesn't matter because they know that you don't know that they're doing it. Trump signed every $1 trillion omnibus bill. And it's like nobody cares because the Russia collusion or this, they always have a plot to take you away from that happening. So there is no threat to the elites or the establishment. They're just milking America dry. And we're fighting a two-front war. I saw David Sachs tweet this out. Good guy, good American. He tweeted out, America doesn't have enough weapons defense systems for 2 wars. We can only fund one at a time. Like, he's nervous because, we're funding Ukraine and now we need to help Israel because they're escalating things in the Middle East or of course, actually, let me rephrase that. They've never done anything wrong. They always tell the truth. They've never lied in their life and they love Americans, and anybody who suggests otherwise is just pure anti-Semitism, and they need a million laws in order to stop you from saying anything about them because that's just how great and ethical they are. So that's what I mean. My bad. Anyway, David Sachs is concerned that we're funding 2 wars and we can't. The thing is, neither country cares about America. You're supposed to care about yourself. But when our country doesn't care about ourselves, it's like, they'll just keep doing it until they can't do it anymore. And we're the ones suffering. I'll read the comments in a second, but I wanted to play this clip of Peterson. I guess I'll sum it up before I do because it's kind of offshoot, but not really. The solution to this issue is paying attention and realizing that it's happening and stop being like an NPC. If you're just a fan on a political party that's doing this stuff and you think that like slobbering over Carrie Lake or Mike Lindell or Donald Trump is going to fix it, it's not. Like, and I understand I'm saying this now. I've mostly been ignoring this subject because I believe that patience is important and you can't rush things. And I also believe that people aren't going to figure this out now or in a year and 2 years. I think it's going to take at least 4 to 5 years. And also, I'm starting to think it might never work. And I'm not trying to be pessimistic, but it's like, when are liberals going to wake up out of their delusion? Maybe in 4 years, maybe never. I don't know. How brainwashed are they? They might never wake up. Yuri Bezmenov said it takes another generation to not be so brainwashed, and you just got to be patient. When it comes to Republicans, like, could they wake up in 3, 4, 5 years down the road? Sure. Could they wake up next week? Hopefully. Could they never wake up, or a large portion of people never snap out of it? It's very possible. Donald Trump has like a stranglehold on people's brains, and I don't know whether he wins or loses that they're ever going to see through it. I literally think Donald Trump could literally take a crap in his hand and throw it in the face of his biggest supporter on stage, and they would say that it's a secret code, from Guantanamo Bay that means Chrissy Teigen and Nancy Pelosi are getting arrested and put on trial. So I don't, there's certain people that I don't think there's literally not a single event that could ever snap them out of their delusion. So what are you going to do about it? Just nothing. I barely talk about it anymore because it's like, what's the point? These people are so far gone and they don't want to hear it. So you just got to be patient and hope that one day people will figure it out. I'll read comments in a second, but I wanted to bring back this Peterson clip because I just thought about it recently. I haven't talked about it in a year, but it's so funny to me because I'll preface by saying some compliments. I think Jordan Peterson is really interesting when he talks to feminists. I think he destroyed the BBC host, and anytime he talked to like women about pay gaps or outcome versus the inequality of outcome versus the inequality of opportunity, I think that he is the best speaker on that topic. I think there's a reason that he's so famous and so successful, and I'd never take any of that away from him. I'm not a hater at all. I do think that he's the best at that category. Like, nobody explains that topic as eloquently as Peterson does. He's great at that. With that being said, I find him horrific at politics. He's like Daily Wire's little sock puppet, and he seems like an empty, soulless vessel at this point who, I couldn't possibly disagree with more. He's always crying about hate speech on Twitter, saying everybody's demons for disagreeing with him. And, I remember this question where he was talking to Muslims and they asked him about God. And I just thought it was interesting because, instead of answering the question if he believes in God, he tried to pervert the words do and you. And he said, what does do mean? What does you mean? And it's like, imagine not believing in God so hard and not that you have to pervert the words do and you. It's no different than having him have to say pronouns in Canada. It's like him trying to act like he doesn't know what the words do and you mean is literally as crazy as the things that he fought and got famous off of. I'm going to play the 2 clips and then I'm going to respond.
Well, the question, did that happen, begs the question, what do you mean by happen? Because when you are dealing with fundamental realities and you pose a question, you have to understand that the reality of the concepts of your question, when you're digging that deep, are just as questionable as what your question.
I mean, that part wasn't so bad, but this next part, he tries to say, like, what do you mean by do you believe in God? Let's not talk about believe in God. Let's talk about the words do and you. What do you mean by do and you?
So people say to me, do you believe in God? And I think, okay, there's a couple of mysteries in that question. What do you mean do? What do you mean you? What do you mean believe? And what do you mean God? And you say as the questioner, well, we already know what all those things mean except belief in God. And I think, no, if we're going to get down to the fundamental brass tacks, we don't really know what any of those.
Energetically, he looks like he's literally possessed by a demon. Like he doesn't look happy or confident or comfortable or intellectual. He looks like he's like an exorcism's being taken place and he looks like demonically possessed or something. With that being said, on the preface of what he's saying, I don't care that he doesn't believe in God. I don't care that he's trying to question the words believe in God, because I understand that, like, intellectually, what do you mean by believe and what do you mean by God? It's a fair question. Saying what do you mean by do and what do you mean by you is as crazy as saying there's 100 pronouns, there's 100 genders, and you got to treat me by my gender. It's just as crazy. It's like, yeah, believe in God. What do you mean by believe in God? Fair question. What do you mean? What do you mean by do and you? Do you believe in God? Do you? You do you? You know what it means. I'm talking to you. There's no group there that you could be like misconstrued for. Do you? Which one? All of us? Just me? No, do you? You know what do you means, just like you know what a male and a female is. So it's just interesting to me that I like what he does when he talks to feminists, but as far as like a spiritual leader, it's just like it's hard for me to take these people seriously. Like he looks possessed, he looks uncomfortable, he doesn't know what the words do or you mean because he doesn't want to tell his Christian audience that he doesn't believe in God, even though he's talking about like it's just like dumb. And these are like the leaders that people are looking up to. No wonder everybody's so lost and confused. And I'm not saying to like hate on the guy. He's a legend, but I just noticed recently, since he's been covering politics, when he just covered feminism in Canada, he was great. Now that he's covering politics, he falls for anti-Second Amendment propaganda. He's constantly pushing this like subverted, fake godly like message where he's like on a tour now with some atheist guy about like his level. It's just like what's going on here? I just don't get it. It's just odd. I just thought that clip was interesting. I just saw it again because to say, do you believe in God? And then you say, what do you mean by do and you? It's just like, dude, just say you're an atheist. It's fine. We'll forgive you. It's not a big deal. I just see all of this stuff and it's like everyone's just following these people. It's just fascinating to me. Someone said I'm Christian, I'm not Judeo-Christian. You're arguing with somebody on Facebook, I guess. What are you having, like a debate with somebody? I don't know who you're talking about, but yeah, I mean, I think that that's fair too. Christians, that's a whole thing. I don't feel like talking about it now, but as far as like Christian Zionism and this idea that Judeo-Christian, It is what it is. I mean, you could say Islamo-Christian or Christian Judeo or Judeo-Islamo, like, you know, but at the end of the day, there's Christianity, there's Judaism, and there's Islam, you know, and there's different sects of Islam, and there's different sects of Judaism, and there's different sects of Christianity. But this, like, I don't say the word I'm not Judeo-Christian, I'm Christian. The country's Judeo-Christian. I think America is not a Christian country. It's definitely a Judeo-Christian country now. But, you know, it's not to say this or that, but yeah, Christians who say Judeo-Christian, it shows you where their mindset's at. You don't see Islamic people say Judeo-Islamic because they don't hate themselves and they don't hate their religion, and they're not so weak and pathetic that they put an entire different religion in front of their religion. It's like showing people how pathetic you are, you know? It's like you're like 100% European, and they're like, "Are you European?" You're like, "No, I'm African European." It's like, "But you're 0% African." You're like, "Yeah, but you know, we have shared values." It's like, "Yeah, sure, but I'm not saying like, do you have any identity of your own, or no? You just let a whole different religion go in front of your religion in a hyphen?" You know, it's just like so obvious. Christians in this country are so baked. That's why I don't blame any group, because I think Americans, conservatives, Christians, you know, there's a reason all this stuff's happening. Weak people get conquered. Weakness gets destroyed. You know, you don't get a country if you put an entire another religion in front of your own religion. You know, like, it's like, okay, that's fine, but don't expect any results. And then these people, the reason Republicans are so mad all the time is because their whole life is a lie. So they're like, "Oh, it's the left and civil war," and it's like, who are you listening to? Like, are you getting religious advice from a guy who looks like he's possessed, saying, you know, he doesn't know what the words "do" and "you" mean because he doesn't want to answer the question? Do you believe in God? It's a pretty straightforward question. Yes or no. What do you mean by believe in God? I mean, you know, do you believe in a higher power? That's what I mean. And which higher power? It's fine. You don't have to agree with me, but I'm just wondering. Oh, no. What do you mean by "do" and "you"? Okay, buddy. It's like saying, what did you mean by not calling me a non-binary, femi-queer, demisexual? It's like, what? I'm gonna read a few comments. Let me see. Someone said Republicans hate Ukraine. No, I want to say this too, because people need to realize that everyone doesn't hate everything. There's some people that are angry, right? And they're mad at something. You know, they're mad at AT&T because their bill was too high, or like, people are mad in this world, but not everything's hate. This is annoys me more than anything in the world, is it's basically like we're being, I wouldn't say extorted, but, you know, held for ransom over a financial bidding of other countries. And it's disgusting. It's like, if you don't want to give hundreds of billions of dollars to Ukraine, you hate them. Okay, so are you holding me for ransom and going to slander my name if I don't just fork out money to you? Can't you just make an argument for why? Like, America is in debt. Here's an idea for Ukraine, Israel, and every country that they'll probably never do because they could just take it from America. If we're in debt and we're going into more debt every year, we actually don't have money. So we're going into more debt to give you our money, or we're giving you our taxpayer money that could be used for something domestically. If we can go into further and further and further debt to fund these countries, why can't these countries go into debt to fund themselves? What's the difference? Is it on us? That's our relationship with the world. And it's because Americans and Republicans, not just liberals, are super weak and pathetic. And weak and pathetic people get scammed. You know, when it comes to the other country, I saw somebody that I really respected, who lives in Israel, right? Really respected her. Don't care that we disagree on certain things. It's understandable. Always respected her foreign policy. She lives there. Obviously, she supports it. Nothing wrong with that. But I saw her retweet that, Thomas Massey doesn't want to fund the Iron Dome. So it's like, you know, is it hate speech to say that it's disgusting to harass politicians in America for not wanting to send billions of dollars to foreign countries? We're in debt. Our cities are falling apart. Hundreds of thousands of people are dying from opioids. Our borders are open. Our politicians can't do anything for us. All they do is for Ukraine and Israel. Is that not okay? We can't have one politician that doesn't want to fund foreign countries. This is our relationship with these countries. They basically just slander you and smear you and talk shit to you if your entire existence isn't to fund them and pass speech laws for them. It's disgusting. But saying it's disgusting is hate speech, of course, because certain people have never done anything wrong ever. They're always right. They're the most ethical and the best. And that's why they need speech laws and our money, or else you're a bad person. Like, this is the relationship. Republican politicians are in on it. Most Republican audience are starting to figure it out, but a lot of them are just completely delusional about this because they're listening to people that never talk about it and always frame it in a different way. When it comes to me, like, I know, like, I look at what other people are saying, I'm aware, but it's kind of like talking to somebody that watches MSNBC all day. It's hard to get on the same level as them if they believe everything they're hearing, because they live in a different world than you do. They've been listening to certain programming for 4 years. You don't live in the same reality anymore. Their thoughts are not your thoughts. It's okay. It's the same with a lot of Republicans. Like, if you listen to Cat Turd, Benny Johnson, Kerry Lake, Dan Bongino, Trump all the time, I'm not saying you're a bad person. I'm not saying we probably agree on like 95% of policy, but you're in this reality where what I'm saying confuses you because you've never heard it before, because it's been 4 years of programming that you're fighting China or the left. And it's like, it's not really what's going on necessarily. Yeah, China's an adversary. I'm just saying, like, people can't process what I'm saying because they're getting like dumbed down and just mopped over by these like very simplistic conversations that are just had on loop. And the reason that I don't even like, I'm just tapped out of that stuff because it's like, once I listen for a couple minutes and I'm like, this is not really good analysis. Someone said Tucker Carlson is a cuck for Dana and Kid Light Anomaly. UFC doesn't embody the values of martial arts. I mean, the Bud Light thing was corny. I agree. But, I'm myself. I try to be as complimentary towards other people as I can when they do good things. But you don't see me selling Bud Light. I'm not Kid Rock. I'm not Dana. I'm not, oh, I got $100 million from Kid Rock, so now they're cool. It's like, that's the definition of a sellout. If you could do it for free, then it is what it is. But if not, it is what it is. Someone said Iran has a right to defend itself, right? LOL. Well, I don't really get involved in war because I'm just going to say it from an American perspective. Here's what I will say, though. Obviously, Iran, Israel, Palestine, you can act like it started a month ago or yesterday or when Iran struck or when Israel struck their embassy, but it hasn't. It's been going on for decades, so I don't know if this is offensive, but it's the truth. Iran's been plotting for decades. Israel's been plotting for decades. And, obviously things were escalated extraordinarily in October. And since then, there's been more escalation. Like, I'm not saying that Israel can't defend itself or Iran can't defend itself. But when I watch pro-Israel people be like, oh, I can't believe Iran's doing that. It's like, didn't you just kill their generals at an embassy or a consulate, which is like unprecedented? Like, it's always like doing something and then acting like you never did it. It's the same thing America did in Ukraine. I'm not a Putin fan. I'm not Russian. I like America, but America poked the bear 1,000 times within Ukraine, and then Russia does something, and then America goes, oh, that was just out of nowhere. Like, it wasn't out of nowhere. That's a lie. I'm not saying he's right. It's just the truth. And, the truth is hate speech now, so why even talk about it? So do both countries have the right to defend themselves? Of course, but it's like at the end of the day, everybody will act like it just started and they never did anything, which is not true. And with that being said, in America, what you're going to realize is once you realize what's going on, and once you say, you know what, God bless you and God bless you, and it's tough what's going on, but like, we need to fix ourselves, they're going to call you anti-Semitic. It's just the truth. You need to exist to basically funnel your money to foreign countries, pass speech laws, and be okay with it. The second you say that's an infringement on the First Amendment, you're anti-Semitic. The second you say you want to, stop foreign aid, you're going to have Americans and foreigners call you anti-Semitic like they do to Thomas Massey every day. That's the truth. Your existence is basically to just work and fund everybody except for yourselves, and not even be remotely skeptical. Like, when it comes to Israel, they do what's best for their people. I mean, Netanyahu might go further than other leaders, and they might have debates about that. But in general, they're doing what's best for Israel. It makes total sense. America seems like one of the only countries in the world, besides a lot of European countries, that nothing they do is ever for them. It's like everything we do is for everyone else. What does it tell you that Democrats and Republicans, they can't come together to close the border? Israel wouldn't allow open borders. Egypt doesn't allow open borders. Ukraine and Russia can't afford open borders. Nobody in the world, Syria talked about how closing their borders helped them tremendously. They couldn't open their borders. No country can survive in the world with open borders, yet American politicians can't come together to do that, but they can come together to give money to Israel, and they can come together to give money to Ukraine. It's not a rocket science. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out what's going on. The politicians in America are so wildly sold out, and they don't have American interests at heart. But when you say that, they'll say that you're pro-Putin or anti-Semitic or both, which is not true. It's like once you realize that your only job in America is to not realize this and funnel your money to other people while they constantly slander you, you're going to get slandered as well. So that's the reality. Trump, Biden, whatever, it doesn't matter. It's like that's America's function right now. And I would even go as far to say as Trump is not running to fix America for you. He's raising hundreds of millions of dollars from donors to do what he did last time, pass speech laws for a foreign country that oddly, mimic the Bolshevik ones, and then also print more money than Obama and turn into a pharmaceutical psychopath. That's what he did last time. He hired the entire swamp cabinet. Name 3 people that he hired in his main cabinet that were good. You can't, because there weren't. Ben Carson, that's it. The one guy, I guess, I can't even remember his name. Everyone else, swamp. Oh, but it's going to be different, right? Because you want it to be. No, that's the Republican Party. They're controlled opposition. They exist to wear cowboy hats and sell out the First Amendment, and they hope that you never figure it out, because the second you figure it out, right-wing media will hate you just as much as left-wing media does. And to be honest, a lot of right-wing people will not like you. Oh, you changed so much. I didn't sell out the First Amendment. I did videos on this in 2019. If I was president and I sold out the First Amendment and you disagreed with it, imagine if I tried to gaslight you and be like, you changed so much. No, Trump changed. I didn't think he was going to turn into a communist, socialist, vaccine psychopath. I didn't know he was going to sell out the First Amendment for one race, one religion, and one country. And when he did that, I immediately said I disagree with it. So you can't even identify that I didn't sell out the Constitution, that I'm not taking donor money. And you think that donor money is only in politics. It's not. Everybody who says they stand with somebody, they're standing with the donor money that they just got every time. Look it up. It's like, oh, I stand with this country. Can you stand with them without taking money? Like I stand, it's like if I took $1 million from Saudi Arabia and I'm like, I stand with Saudi Arabia. Why? Randomly, I'm just standing up. No, that's what they're doing. But in general, it's not just politicians that are controlled by donors. It's a lot of media people. They're controlled by donors, or they're controlled by their bosses who are controlled by donors, and they know how to not get Candace Owens and what line not to cross. So they all play that game. They're not as dumb as you think they are. Like when people say, oh, they made a mistake. Mistakes are made. I'm not seeking perfection, but like if somebody is like consistently wrong about multiple of the biggest topics in humanity, and I could figure it out without a college degree and with a calculator, then maybe they're not as smart as they're telling you. Either I'm the smartest person on the planet, or they're just lying to you. I don't think I'm the smartest person on the planet. I don't think I'm stupid. I definitely think I'm intelligent, but it's like I'm not doing some sort of like world-changing equation. I'm using 3rd grade math that I learned in elementary school, and a calculator that comes free with every computer and cell phone. And I'm clicking in the numbers, and I'm like, oh, the narrative about the COVID testing and everything, it's not adding up. I know that with a calculator in 3rd grade math, but Ben Shapiro and Jordan Peterson can't figure it out for 2 years. Either they're not as intellectual as they tell you they are, or they're purposely lying. I'm not really sure which one it is, but it's like, I don't think an intellectual sits there and says, what does do and what does you mean? And he looks uncomfortable. I might get passionate, but do I look comfortable? Do I look calm? Do I look like I'm having an exorcism like Jordan Peterson trying to deny the existence of God and Jesus Christ? It's like, no. It's like, what do you mean by do? What do you mean by you? It's like, that's not intellectualism. That's like, an exorcism being like, conducted live on air, and he's like spiraling and looks miserable. I'm not trying to be mean, but it's like, I don't need to listen to some pseudo intellectual, professor try to deny the existence of God by denying the existence of the words do and you, and gaslighting you into believing like he doesn't know what those words mean. Believe in God are words to question. What do you mean by believe? What do you mean by God? Understandable. What do you mean by God? What do you mean by do and you? In the context of do you believe in God? If someone asks me, do you believe in God? You think I don't know what the do and the you are? Do you? That's me. believe in God. It's not this like, like talk in a circle for an hour and then sell a bunch of sheets or whatever. It's like, it's not intellectualism. So it's just like, I don't know what game everyone's playing, but I don't have to lie to myself. That's all it really is. Like, I'm not, and I think it comes from self-love and confidence, like in yourself, to the point where if you don't lie to yourself, why would you want to listen to people lie to you? Like, you got to be a special type of person to listen to Mike Lindell and like look up to him for like political advice. Like that takes and there's a lot of people like that. I don't know, because he's got charisma. He's a great salesman. I mean, he's one of the best salesmen in modern history. He took pillows and made a fortune off of pillows. Like, he's a great pillow salesman. I think he's the greatest pillow salesman in modern history. Like, if there's a picture of the greatest pillow salesman in U.S. history, it's probably going to be him. Who's a better pillow salesman than him? But, just because he sells pillows doesn't, like, are they as good as he says they are? I don't know. Is any pillow as good as they say they are? But is it like, it's probably, I don't know. Oh, wait, you can't say anything bad about the pillows. I forgot he freaks out. Anyway, let me see. Someone said the vaccines are safe and effective, just like our southern border and elections. But this is all I'll say. I hear you. If our politicians can come together over sending our money overseas and passing speech laws against the Constitution, but they can't agree on the border, it's not hard to figure out what's going on in the country. And it's not just Democrats. It's obvious. But this is what I want to explain to Americans. And this is happening in Europe and all over the world too, is like, if you can't figure it out, you're not a victim. You're not the victim to the left. You're not the victim to George Soros. You're not the victim to the media. Like, Trump's like, you're not honest enough to get a real country. Like, you're not, everyone on the right wants to tell everybody we're all victims. We're not victims. You're not, oh, poor me because I'm conservative. You deserve this country. We all do. Like, this country turns around when people figure it out, and a politician is not going to fix it because it's like a mass psychosis going on. It's got to be a cultural shift. And in some ways, sometimes politicians help that, but in other ways, they prevent it from going anywhere because they control what you think about, what you talk about, and what you do. That's why before this video, I'm barely even talking about Trump and Biden. It doesn't matter to me. It's like, how advanced people get on these topics, to me, matters more than the Trump and Biden election. Sure, if Trump wins, there's a chance that he builds a wall. There's a chance that he escalates the war. Actually, to be honest, I don't think Israel really cares what Biden or Trump says. I don't think they have to. They know that they'll keep getting foreign aid and everybody will be called anti-Semitic. So whether Trump or Biden's there, I don't think they take orders from America anyway. They just take foreign aid and, call everybody hateful for noticing or whatever. But it's like, someone said, so what's your solution? Is noticing that this is going on and being honest about it. That is literally the solution. That's it. Let me see. Someone said, when Trump builds a wall 300 years too late, it'll be to keep Americans in, not illegals out. Well, that's the other interesting part about the wall is, yeah, I've heard that theory from like Ron Paul and stuff. It's interesting. Where do I land on RFK Jr.? He's running a goofy campaign. He's good on pharmaceuticals, but he bends the knee just like Trump bends the knee. If anybody ever interviewed RFK and said, would you pass the IHRA anti-Semitism laws? He'll probably say yes. He's exactly the same. He's just another clown for the circus. I used to really respect him, but once I realized he was just like everybody else and he bends the knee and he caves and he completely lacks logic and reason for one topic only, it's clear that he's purposely lying or just doesn't know what's. I don't believe that. So you could watch my interview with Dave Smith if, we talked about it a little bit more in depth, but I think sometimes these like little plots are just given to you to like have false hope and waste your time. Like he'll do it. He won't. So why waste a year pretending like he will? Someone said RFK's junior uncle and father were assassinated. Do you think he'll go against the grain? Well, in some ways, he already went against the grain, but here's the thing. I don't know what to tell you, but it's like, I don't watch politics. Like say Trump or RFK lies about something, and I know they're lying, and they know they're lying, and the reason that they're lying is because they're afraid, right? Bad things happen to RFK's family, and he's afraid. My responsibility is not to lie to myself because I think he's lying because he's afraid. I don't know what to tell you. I think God is important because if you fear God, you fear God more than you fear telling the truth. Like lying because you're afraid of something. It's like, okay, cool. Then you're just like everybody else. Get out of the way. Who cares? I understand. Yeah, it's scary. Life is scary. Everything's scary. But it's like at the end of the day, I don't need to listen to somebody that's like compromised because they're afraid. Then what's the point of cheering for them? It's like, why even run for office? If you're so afraid, RFK was floating under the radar, barely getting any media attention. Like he chose all this attention. If he really was afraid of that, he wouldn't have ran for office. Like, he could have just been the pharmaceutical guy. And I don't know. But everything comes at a cost in this world. I try to say this to be inspirational because it's just true. Like there's certain things I don't like to do. I don't like to fly all the time. But the thing is, if you don't fly, you don't go anywhere. And every time you go somewhere, you usually don't regret it. You usually have a good trip or a good experience. So it's like there's a lot of things that make me uncomfortable, but in that uncomfort is where life is really had. Like, doing something as a man or a woman, but I can only speak as a man, is like, it makes life worth living. So at the end of the day, yeah, it's scary to do a lot of things. Absolutely. But it's also scary to never accomplish anything. It's also scary to work for a corporation that hates you. It's also scary to work under a boss that would throw you under the bus for a pharmaceutical vaccine. It's also scary to, like there's a lot of things that are scary, but it feels like everybody's so afraid of the truth. Like, oh, that might happen. It's like, yeah, but if you lie constantly, then you're, then what's the point? Or if you're afraid of everything. So I understand with his family and stuff, he's heavily connected. That is scary knowing that your family, were off. Like, absolutely. But you don't have to run for office if you're scared. You could just not run. That's fine. I would respect him. But running and then lying and then caving and then being like every other politician, I just don't understand what the point is. And then you say you're going to run as a Democrat and then you run independent to the side of Trump. Like, it doesn't make any sense. What's RFK doing? As much as I like some of the stuff he says, he could be trying to take votes away from Trump. He could just be wasting people's time, or another character added to the plot. Because now that people are realizing that, Trump is not really it, now they think RFK is it. He's pulled in a lot of other people that they think that he's like this outsider. So I don't know what his role is or what he's trying to do, but I like a lot of his information, but as a candidate, I don't take his presidency seriously. I take his his influence on pharmaceuticals and Monsanto and all that stuff, I take very seriously. I think he's intellectual. He's a great American. He's honest, but I just don't take his presidential campaign seriously. I don't know what he's doing, but it is what it is. I'm not voting for RFK. I'm either voting for Trump or I'm just going to go to the gym and work out, because right now, as of today, I'm not inspired to even vote at all. Hopefully that changes, because I'd love to vote all Republican. But at this point, I find more value in, crushing the gym and getting jacked and doing like a little steam room or something, sauna, than like voting for a pharmaceutical socialist who's controlled op, who passes Bolshevik speech laws. That doesn't sound really appealing to me, but hopefully he can change my opinion. I don't know. Here's the problem too, is like, no one asks him these questions. So if people ask them these questions, you'd get like more answers, but these are mysteries. At this point, who knows what he'll do. Someone said, how is Trump better on Israel? It depends what you see or what you think he's going to do. I think that both parties are exactly the same on Israel, but Trump definitely, I think, is more in the bag for Israel personally. So I don't know. It's hard to tell what he'll do, because also he doesn't want to look bad. So if they start making him look bad, then he might get mad. He's very into himself. So he could tell Israel, yo, do whatever you want. It's fine. Or he might say, oh, Israel, you're making me look bad. People don't like me because you're bombing too many people. Trump is a wild card. You never really know. But look at all the stuff he did. He's done more for Israel than anyone. He passed Israeli speech laws in America. I mean, he's a total, that's like his main thing. I feel like He moved the embassy for them. Yeah, it depends what you think you want out of the Middle East. My personal opinion is that Israel doesn't really care that much who wins the presidency, because they're not going to listen to Biden, and they're probably not going to listen to Trump either. They're probably going to dog walk Trump just like they did last time. So, when Biden says, "Hey, Netanyahu, don't do this," nobody cares. He's like, yeah, shut up, and Biden's like, bark, bark, And then with Trump, he'll just put on a show. He'll tell you the left and the right and this and that. He'll tell them, do whatever you want, go get the job done, but don't do this. And he'll make it like very political. Trump and Obama are actually very similar, not in presentation, but they're both really good at talking. Like Obama, he could tell you he wants to infringe on the Second Amendment while telling you he's not going to infringe on it, while telling you he's going to infringe on it. Like a good politician is able to just be like a talking head for the people behind him, and he'll say all this thing and he'll make you comfortable with it. But then same with Matthew McConaughey, his little speech, it's the same thing. Trump is very similar. When he talks about Israel and Palestine, if you're pro-Israel, you're not mad at what he's saying. If you're pro-Palestine, you're also not mad at what he's saying. It's like both sides hear what they want. He speaks in a way where you're not sure what he's going to do, because he's trying to win an election and not piss off either side. He needs the pro-Israel side, especially on the donor money side, and he needs the pro-Palestine side, or at least people that are against foreign aid and want to, they're not pro either or anti either country. They just like America. Trump needs that crowd as well, and it's huge. It's huge in the right. It's huge in the left. So I think Trump's just trying to say enough that neither side is upset with them. Robert Blatch something with the super chat. I can't see your last name. Blatchley. When Theodore Herzl was preaching political Zionism, Christians were being brainwashed by John Nelson Darby and dispensationalism. Western Christianity created the first steps to controlled opposition by changing the face. I know Theodore Herzl was like the godfather of Zionism, and Dave Smith talked about it too, because they were looking for different land, and obviously they picked this land because it's holy, but also they knew that Christians would back them. I've definitely read about the Schofield Bible and how they kind of introduced this new understanding to Christians to gain their support to reclaim Israel. So yeah, that's interesting. And I'll say this too: whether you're watching this and you're pro-Israel, or you're super Zionist, or you're pro-America, or you're Christian, or you don't know, or you do know, I don't care. It doesn't matter to me. But I will say this, because it's the truth. If you don't understand Zionism and its influence in American politics, literally nothing will make sense. You're going to be like an elementary school kid playing with LeBron James. You have no chance of being right about anything. I'm just being honest. A lot of what's going on, Trump's passing Zionist speech laws for, I don't know, you're not allowed to say for donors because that's anti-Semitic, even though it's probably true. So it's when you're like, why did he do that? I don't get it. I thought he was my friend. You're missing the huge piece of the puzzle. I'm not telling you to be on one side or the other. I'm not hating on anybody. It's just if you don't understand America's relationship with Israel and America's relationship with Zionism, nothing will make sense. The Middle Eastern wars, this, that, it's a huge thing that's going on. Most Republicans, they don't understand it, or they just have blind faith and worship without really ever questioning it. So that's why everyone's so behind on everything. It's even with the vaccine passport. I want to say this: everybody, or the Abraham Accords. The Abraham Accords turned into vaccine passports within 2 years. If you look at the relationship that Israel was better with the UAE and other countries, within a year, that those countries, I think it was Kushner that negotiated with Trump, you saw that they were doing a travel thing where you could travel from that country to that country only if you were vaccinated. So Trump comes and he says, look, I got peace in the Middle East. Oh my gosh. Wow. I'm saving the world. And everyone's like, wow, Trump is so great. Google those countries and then Google vaccine passport. It turned into a vaccine passport. It just did. I'm not blaming anybody. It's just that's the reality of the situation. So, a lot of things are done under the guise of a lot of things that they're not. Someone said Trump will be lucky to get another term in a wall. Here's the thing. Even if Trump wins, you have to ask yourself as an American, Why do we have to give hundreds of billions of dollars to a foreign country in order to get a wall? Why does Congress come together and say, either you get no wall and money for Ukraine, or you get a wall and money for Israel and Ukraine, but you don't just get a wall? Ask yourself as an American why that happens. It feels like America's just being like, it's like, you need to do this for them or else you can't get the wall. Why? Why can't Americans come together, do the wall, and then talk about foreign aid? Because that's what our country is. That's what our country's controlled by. That's what's going on in our country. That's why they're passing hate speech laws, because everything bad that's going on or everything weird that's going on, they don't want you to have an opinion about it, whether you're right or wrong. There is no such thing as hate speech when the people running the country just hate the truth. It's like, yeah, I don't like hateful people when hateful people hate good people for no reason. That's annoying. I don't like hate. I don't like evil. None of these things I condone. But you have to understand, a hate speech law is blasphemous. They're making the Bible illegal. They don't like what Jesus Christ and the Bible said about homosexuality, so they're outlawing on social media Christians. What's the perspective of Christians or Muslims or some even Jewish people? I don't know about all of them, but some. And also Christians, there's soft. But I'm just saying, it's like, I don't care what people think on that topic, but when you basically say it's hate speech to say what the Bible said, you're outlawing the Bible on social media. You're not going to say you're doing it because Christians would be annoyed, but that's what you're doing. When you can't talk about certain racial things or certain religious things, like, and Jesus's name is mentioned in the anti-Semitism speech laws. You can't tell me that they're not trying to outlaw the Bible, or else they wouldn't mention Jesus in the hate speech laws. Jesus's name is mentioned in the anti-Semitism laws. Trump passed it. DeSantis passed it. Every Republican's passing it. They're all passing it. Every week, if you're on Twitter and you follow a Republican, they're going to tweet these laws. Tweet. It's happening all over the place. Okay. Why is Jesus's name mentioned in a hate speech law? I don't want Jesus's name mentioned in the hate speech law, because that leads me to believe that you don't want people to have biblical discussions, and they're going to ease it in slowly. And once they're all locked in, then they're going to turn them on, and then it's going to get crazy. And then all the scammers are going to tell you that it's just the left or whatever, and it's not. So, it is what it is, but people are starting to figure it out. And I just, I don't really know where the country's going, but it's like, looking at it now, I don't really have fear in saying stuff, because it's scarier watching what's happening to the country. Like, it's locking a country down for pharmaceutical shots. Like, wasn't that scary? And even then I wasn't scared. It's just like, what are we going to do? Let every city go to shit in America and just it's not like ignoring this is so not scary. People are like, oh, I don't want to tell the truth about this stuff. Okay, but look at the country. Like, I don't even want to go to major cities right now. Like, going to a major filthy city is more scary to me than talking, because Austin, New York, San Francisco, Portland, Seattle, Los Angeles, like these are cities that I just don't even want to go to. I try to avoid at all costs because it's just disgusting. That's scary to me. Walking in a major city, knowing that it's literally like getting closer and closer to hell on earth. Someone said New Lives for the Old is available in PDF on the Internet Archive. Also purchasable. Someone said Kanye is a fake Christian anomaly. American culture became rap culture. I mean, he's definitely not making Christian music anymore, and he's on a different path, I think, since he disappeared. But I want to say this too. When it comes to Kanye or Ye, when I do analysis, I'm not that person. I know that people don't understand this, whether it's Candace or Kanye or whoever, or Louis Farrakhan or Ben Shapiro or anybody at any time. It's like, I'm responsible for what I'm saying. I hate this game of, you have to believe everything. Like, I'm not him. Like, look how I'm living. Look how he's living. We're different people, for the better or worse. It's just like, people try to play guilt by association. They're like, look, this person's doing that and that. It's like, I'm not responsible for other people, and if I say something, I meant what I said, not what you think I said. I meant what I said. I meant exactly what I said, not what you hallucinated that you thought I said, because they said that and I said that. Like, that's not the game I'm playing. So many people try to play that game based off retweets and this and that, oh, that person retweeted Anomaly. So, okay. And just because someone's wrong about something doesn't mean they're not right about other things. Just because people have said, like extreme content, it doesn't mean like you're telling the truth all the time. Like that's just not how these things work. Like people be like, that person's so bad. It doesn't make what you're saying any more right. Like you could constantly look at other people. Like my reporting during COVID wasn't right because Ben Shapiro was wrong. And my reporting during COVID wasn't right because Trump was doing this or because the left was doing this. It was right because it was true. You understand? Like my analysis wasn't right because other people were bad and I'm good because they're bad. That's not how anything works. So the people that do that constantly, they're usually doing that because they're lying and they're not telling the truth. And the only way anyone could ever think that they're telling the truth is if they constantly pointed to people on the fringes and pointed to them as like, I'm not them. Look at this meme. Look what this person said. What are you saying though? You understand? Like that's what I'm responsible for. What I said, what I did, the things I made, and those analysis reports, even this one, it's not based on what this or that person said. I'm not telling you because Mike Lindell said he's returning in August that means I'm telling the truth for no reason. I'm showing you what I'm telling you. I'm showing you the articles. I'm showing you the infringements on the First Amendment. I'm showing you the speech laws. I'm showing you that he took a meeting with Bill Gates in 2018, Trump, and passed it through executive order in 2019. Like that's the meat of the argument. I'm just pointing out that when people say like Trump's coming back in August, it's hard for me to take that person seriously. And I've gotten into the mindset of a lot of like the Q people, because there's this guy on Twitter that used to just be annoying to me. And he had like this little anonymous account. It's fine. And I just said to him, I was like, bro, like, I basically confronted him because I don't know if you guys noticed this, but a large portion of the people who consume QAnon content, it's a lot of women and it's a lot of older women. It's like you got these younger men manipulating these older women with like just complete delusion. And I asked him, I was like, bro, like I pointed out that he was just completely wrong. And his response to me was like, if I'm wrong, we're screwed. So I'm just going to pretend I'm right because if I'm wrong, we're screwed. I mean, that's a weak and pathetic man misleading older women because he's afraid that if he's wrong, then he's scared. Like, this is weakness. This is not how men thought 40, 50 years ago. If I'm not going to lie to myself, I'm afraid of what it could be. So then I'm screwed. Why are you screwed? Like, what do you just give up? You're just giving up. Like, oh, if I'm wrong about Trump, then I give up. You're a quitter then, and you're a lame and you're a weak man. It's like that mindset of this one guy was just so weird to me where I was like, so you're going to, what you're saying is like, you're pretty much admitting that you think that you might be wrong, but you're just going to keep saying it because that like that provides hope and you wish that was happening. It's like, this is not optimism. This is just delusion. Should I say that my house is made out of like candy cones and, the sun, if I stare at the sun for 5 minutes straight, that my eyes are going to turn into like a laser beams? And if it's not true, then I'm screwed. Like what? I don't like that whole logic is so backwards and so pathetic. I'll read a few more. Someone said technocracy is the final form of communism via Bolshevism. Well, in this world, obviously there's enough technology to do a lot of things. It's just, you got to realize when they're passing speech laws. I mean, even on Twitter, Elon has done more, and I'm not saying to trust him. He's done more than Trump has done. Like Elon has done more with Twitter by allowing people to talk than Trump did in his 4 years. Trump is not that good of a leader. He's not a thought leader. He's not really doing that much. He said a lot. He said things that people wanted and then, kind of just ended up siding with the pharmaceutical industry and the billionaires over you. But, so I go by actions, and Elon allowing people to speak openly on Twitter has done more to shift the culture in the right direction than anything that's happened in the last couple of years, in my opinion. I think 2016 Trump was a huge awakening, but after that, it just kind of fell by the wayside. Someone said Elon is too rich to not be part of the plan. Well, I mean, look at his company that implants computer chips in human brains. It's not too hard to figure that out, but if he's going to do some good things, I'm not attached to everything he does. I'm just going to compliment where I see good and, stay away from computer chips in my head. But, I'm just like analyzing it. It's like what he's done with Twitter, he didn't have to do that. He could have just let it do what it was doing, and no one would have known anything. But he's really dialed back on censoring speech and kicking people off, and it's completely changed the discussion of the political thing. It's even a huge influence in what's going on with Ben and Candace, because for 4 years they artificially pretended like what they were saying was popular, and it was all artificial. And then like once you allow people to enter the conversation again, then it's like, oh, it's actually not popular. Like Ben Shapiro's foreign policy is not popular. It's just they did a good job suppressing all of the opposition by calling him crazy and anti-Semitic and far right. Like that's what they did for 5 years. It would be like if I blacklisted Ben Shapiro from the internet and said, because he said Palestinians should be wiped out or whatever he said, like Palestinians build or destroy or whatever. Like, I don't know what he said, but whatever the meanest thing he's ever said about Palestinians, imagine if I just said Ben Shapiro can't speak at colleges. Ben Shapiro shouldn't be able to be on podcasts. Ben Shapiro shouldn't be on Twitter. And then it's like, oh, look, I'm popular because his opinion doesn't exist. And I'm not saying he did that, but definitely people have done that, where for 5 years, in order to suppress the conversation, it was like a concerted effort to blacklist, mislabel, smear, behind the scenes, tell everybody not to talk to people like that, in order to make Republican viewers think that they were telling the truth, because there was no counter to what they were saying. It's like you got to allow people to disagree with you in order to find out who's telling the truth. But if everybody around you has like fake debates, then it never gets seen. All right. I'm gonna read a few more. I'm gonna leave this under 2 hours real quick, because I don't know, 2 hours is a little much, to be honest. Hold on a second. Someone said, we all know the Q drops, you're not a special boy. No, you got to study him for 5 years and hallucinate that Donald Trump is secretly in control of the military's listening to them. That's why we're fighting Ukraine. And it's like, the military is not under Trump's control. It's a cope. It would be like if they're like transgendering the military and like weakening the military, or whatever you want to perceive. And I was like, yo, they're doing that to the military, and they're doing like LGBT hikes and, diversity training or whatever. And you're like, no, it's not happening secretly. That's super straight. It's a super straight hike for straight people. It's like, bro, whatever you want to tell yourself, it's just like making up the scenario in your head that you wish it was, because you don't want to admit that it's happening. It's not a form of strength or loyalty. It's just a pure form of weakness. It's like, yo, there's a fire at your kid's school. Maybe you should go pick your kid up. And you're like, oh no, the fire represents Native Americans. That means Donald Trump's at the school and he's beating up the deep state. And it's like, or not, that's not happening, but you wish it was happening. But what's really happening is really happening. And you should probably be a man and figure it out and go do something about it. And you're like, no, I'm loyal. You're not loyal. It's pure weakness. It's pure delusion. There's nothing like, it's better to just ignore politics. Like if you're afraid of the reality of politics, it's better to ignore it. I've talked to people and women recently where they're like, yo, I've been stressed out by politics. I haven't been watching. And it's like, that's good. I'm not, that's not bad. It's okay to tune all this out completely. Because if you had two options, tune out politics and focus on your life, or listen to Republicans that constantly yell at you and run you in circles and lie to you and never talk about the speech laws and never question Donald Trump, it's much better to ignore politics. Like, it's actually not good to listen to politics. People that follow a lot of these right-wing meme pages and stuff, they're just as brainwashed as liberals. Like, you're much better off and you'll be much happier completely ignoring what I'm saying. When people say to me, like, oh, I haven't watched your streams recently, it's fine. I wouldn't recommend watching all of them. I appreciate people who do, but like, there's nothing wrong with not listening. Like, it's good to know what's going on, but if you're paying attention all the time, it doesn't mean you know what's going on. There's millions of liberals and Republicans that they think that they're being educated, but they're being indoctrinated and they don't even realize it. And it's the mom that ignores politics is better than the mom that believes in QAnon. Like, you're, as long as you're not too liberal and delusional, if you're just like, nah, I don't want to listen to politics, and then the mom goes, you got to trust the plan, I'm helping the world, like, you're not helping anybody. You're literally lying to yourself and listening to con artists like scramble your brains with Bolshevik counterintelligence propaganda. Like, that's not helpful. Someone said you will live in a YMCA and you'll own nothing. Dude, I don't know why that's so funny, but is that the Trump one because he likes YMCA? That's hilarious. Someone said Washington, D.C. is nothing but pigs. That's hate speech. They're all brave patriots in D.C., just sending your money to other countries for your best interest. Because if America doesn't deplete itself fighting a two-front war for countries that literally don't care about it at all, what else are we going to do with our money and time? I was asking the question last night. I was thinking, because like China has 1 billion people. China is very rich. China is very powerful. Does China have to fight a bunch of wars around the world for other people? Do Chinese people get called anti-Semitic when they don't want to do it? Do Chinese people get called anti-Semitic all the time when they don't want to fund $100 billion to Zelensky or Russia or whatever it is, Ukraine and Israel? Like, how come I'm just wondering, how come China doesn't have to fund other countries? How come China doesn't get called hateful when they don't want? Like, how come they don't have to fight all these wars all over the place? Because they got a lot of money and power like America. Is that just an American custom or no? Because does anyone else do that, or is that just America? Is that just how we work? Someone said, isn't it possible that Yuri Bezmenov was a fake defector? I would say that it's definitely not out of the realm of possibility. The only thing that makes me think that Yuri Bezmenov wasn't was that what he said aged so well, Like, if he was lying, it's the greatest lie ever because it came true. So, he definitely could have, but here's why I think he's telling the truth. He wasn't like some basic guy saying like basic stuff about propaganda. One of my favorite parts of that is he said, my KGB instructors told me, don't bother with leftists. You don't need to bother with leftists because they're already destroying themselves. They're useful idiots. Aim higher, get into conservative media and make conservative media basically, infiltrate conservative media to push like anti-patriotism and anti-nationalism in the conservative movement. That's where the money is, because like you don't need to subvert liberal media. They're already subverting themselves. It sounds believable to me. I mean, I think it's good to be skeptical if you think he was lying, but if you listen to Yuri Bezmenov's entire speech, like everything he said like is happening. So it's hard to believe that he's not telling the truth, because if he was lying, then it wouldn't all be happening so identically. Like that's why it went viral in the first place. Like it's identically happening almost exactly as he said. For sure, he could have been doing something, but I tend to believe him for that reason. But, I think skepticism is healthy if you have a good reason to not believe it, or, for sure. Anytime, like the lady, I'll give you an example. The lady from North Korea, I don't know who she is, and I'm not saying I do, but I don't believe her. I'm not saying North Korea is great, but I've watched her and I've seen like entire compilations of her just be like, contradicting herself. But like everyone has her on Fox, PBD, everyone's like the North Korea defector lady. Not saying she's a bad person, not saying she's anybody. I'm not going to like put out false accusations, but I'm just saying, me personally, I don't listen to a word she says. I don't trust her. Doesn't mean I hate her. Doesn't mean it's just like but that doesn't just come from me being like, oh, I just don't like her. I've seen entire compilations of her saying both sides of a story that both of them couldn't even possibly be true. So it's like, I'm not in a rush to go to North Korea, but it's like, I don't believe her personally. Yuri, I feel like everything he said aged extraordinarily well. Hard not to believe him because of his accuracy. But someone said China is an ethno state and they're too smart to get involved in this BS until it's expedient for them politically. Yeah, I mean, definitely that's what they are. They're definitely like a communist Chinese ethno state who seems like, they don't like to be in a lot of wars. Like they don't really fight that much. They seem very like, I'm not going to do this unless I really have to. which I'm not into communism at all, but I'm just saying like not fighting in wars unless you have to is a pretty good strategy. America's like the opposite. But is what it is. Let me see. Someone said China is controlled by the same people who rule the West. The West has been building up China for over 50 years. Possibly, could be. They definitely seem like they keep their national interests pretty high, but with the economy and how intertwined it is with the Western economy, it's not out of the realm. Let's see. Someone said, China just left the dark ages. They still got things to do. Yeah, I'm not advocating for everything they're doing. I'm just speaking. Robert said, I would have no problem with DC being, well, I'm not going to read that. It's a little aggressive. I don't co-sign that. Someone said the Belt and Road Initiative, China plus Israel plus Russia. I haven't heard about all that, but I'm sure they're doing business together. I wouldn't be surprised. And when people ask like what I think of other people, I'm not throwing accusations of, oh, this person's working with that. And like, I'll tell you what I think with Jordan Peterson. It's like, I'm not going to put out false accusations of who he works for or whatever. I'm just saying at Daily Wire, he does seem to be a bit of an empty vessel spiritually and politically, in that, he just seems to gravitate towards exactly what they're saying and do exactly what they do. And I don't know that I ever heard that before he got there, but maybe he's always felt that way. I don't know. But I'm not going to say, like, you're asking me about other people. I'm not going to speculate on who's an agent or who's doing what. I'm just listening to what they're saying, because this is basically my filter. If I see somebody lying and I know that they know they're lying, like, I'm pretty much over it, unless it was a rare mistake or something. There's a lot of people that I follow that I believe are genuine and telling the truth. And even though we disagree on stuff, they're striving for reality. And then there's other people. I talked to Dave Smith the other day, and he made a good point when he was talking about other people. He goes, Dave said, I'm trying to tell the truth. That's the game I'm playing. Other people, they're playing this different tennis game, or they're playing a game of like trying to play this weird, like, you can just tell they're not seeking reality and truth. They're playing some weird political game. There's a lot of people I follow like that, and I just don't listen to them or take them seriously. I agree with some things they say. Sometimes I'll share a post or two, but I don't, like, there's so many people that are popular in media that people look to for, and I'm just like, I don't get it. I don't see how people don't see this, but I, for the most part, just mind my own business. So that's my threshold, is like, once I see people not telling the truth and like purposely playing this weird political game of like, doing this and that and doing this side, that side, like all over the place, and it doesn't add up, and I realize that they're not even trying to like be that way, then it's like, I don't trust them enough to take them seriously. That's just me. Super chat, Ryan McDonald said, how about that Max Holloway KO with 1 second left? Bro, I've been thinking about it all day. That's one of the greatest moments, not just in UFC history. I feel like that's one of the greatest moments in fight history. That whole fight was crazy. That finish was insane. Max Holloway was already a legend, but it's just unreal. I've been thinking about it all day, just shaking my head. Like, that was incredible. Yeah. Shout out to Max Holloway and Justin Gaethje. Great fight. Crazy finish. I mean, what a card. I enjoyed myself thoroughly yesterday. A7099 said, from what? Oh, thank you for the super chat. Someone said, this is a good one. Do I realize that God will even use effed up people for his overall plan, like King Nebo, Cyrus, etc.? Absolutely. But I guess this is where I'm at. I'm not acting like I'm the most well-versed Christian or anything, or I'm not a pastor. I'm not asking for people to believe me on, biblical scripture, unless I speak knowing what I'm talking about. And anyway, I don't like this, like, oh, I know who Cyrus is. Like, some people like to play that game, but it's just like, yeah, everybody's used in some sort of way. Like, I don't believe anybody's above God. So I don't think that I don't think that like anybody's going to get away from what God wants to do and how God wants to use you and who you really are, at the core of it. But I feel like Christians cope out way too much now, where they try to act like everybody they want. Like, yeah, maybe Trump is King Cyrus, or maybe he's not. Maybe he's Antichrist. I'm not saying he is. It's just like I don't say he's Antichrist, and I don't say he's King Cyrus. But it's like I feel like there's a lot of false prophets out there that just like they cope so hard with politics, where it's like, yeah, God could use an imperfect person to help you. But God could also use an imperfect person to sell out your religion and make your religion illegal. Trump and DeSantis are essentially pushing to make Christianity illegal through their speech laws. So, at least for me, I think God wants me to use the brain that he gave me and not sit there and drool and cope and act like he's secretly here to save my religion when he's literally selling it out. Like, just like there were imperfect characters who were used for the good, there's plenty of imperfect characters and just not good people. Like, have you ever thought George Soros might be King Cyrus? Like, probably not, right? You don't look at him that way, but it's like you'll look at someone else that way because you really like him because he's on your side. It's like Mitt Romney's not King Cyrus either. So I take the Bible literally when it says to not be a false prophet. You understand? I'm ahead of the curve on a lot of things, but I'm using evidence and reality and logic to make these predictions, and I'm being upfront about how sure I am or how not sure. I predicted mandatory vaccinations, but I didn't say I'm 100% sure Jesus told me in my sleep. I said, here's the evidence. I think mandatory vaccines are coming. And if it doesn't, well, I guess I thought it was, but I don't say I'm 100. Like, that's why I speak very clearly. I don't believe people like Mike Lindell who say, I'm 100% sure he said Trump's coming back. Then he said he's coming back in August. Like, to me, that's a liar. He's not making mistakes. He's lying. I don't say I'm 100% sure unless I'm 100% sure. I'm 100% sure my hat is blue. Like that I'm sure of. Other things, I'll be honest with you, I don't trust people that aren't as honest as me. Why would I? So with prophecies and stuff, like I'm not personally, I know a lot of Christians that like certain people and say certain things and they like certain predictions. I'm into people that are honest. I'm not really into like people that use Christianity to push false prophecy, because the Bible looks very down on false prophets. I'm not saying it looks down on other stuff too, but like, I think you should be very careful with pretending to be a prophet. You shouldn't tell Christians that you're 100% sure about something you're not. That's messed up. I like Texas Hold'em. I haven't played in a while, but in Texas Hold'em, there's always percentages. If you watch World Series of Poker, they have percentages. What do the percentages mean? It means that's the percentage that you have. You have a 90% chance of winning the hand. You have a 5% chance of winning the hand. You have an 100% chance of winning the hand when there's no possible outcome that could beat you. Doesn't matter what cards come on the turn or the river. You can't be beaten 100%. That's what 100% means. It means you're sure. You don't speak and lie. You don't say if you say you're 100% sure and you're wrong, and you won't even admit that you did that, I'll never trust you about anything ever again. It just is what it is. Mike Lindell did that constantly. So it's like anybody that trusts him, in my opinion, doesn't love or respect themselves, and they're not honest enough with themselves to accept it in others. Like I don't play games with like words, like that doesn't. So I think it's wrong, but I'm not saying like, oh, you got to be right about everything. It's just like someone that purposely lies and knows they're lying gets caught and doesn't even say that they're wrong, and then says it was like the left-wing media. Like I think of that person as a clown, but that's just how I speak. I'm not going to guess that Trump is Antichrist or King Cyrus. Like time will tell. God will figure it out. But, all the fake prophecies of he's this and that, he might not be. He might be the person that's selling out your religion, and he might be completely trying to destroy you, Like the evidence shows that. But with Trump, time will tell. Time will tell who he is or what he does. But here's another part of the equation. Trump is Trump. God bless him. I'm me. I didn't sit around and wait for the plan. I became the plan. I believe that my plan was, God wanted me to do something. Like I didn't just sit around and sell out and sell vaccines and Subway sandwiches. Like I, suffered for 10 years, essentially, not selling out to the music industry, and I had to be broke and I had to suffer for my entire 20s. And I believe in God, and I believe that I could have been in trouble a lot of times just based off of not just poverty, but being in a city alone for 10 years with no car. I had no car for a decade in Los Angeles, and I never missed a rent payment because I really worked. I really made it happen. I didn't want to go. I didn't have anywhere to go. I didn't know where to go. So I just worked and figured it out, like a lot of people have in their life. But with me, it's like, I didn't think, oh, let me just worship this politician and sit here. No, I'm a part of this play as well. You know what I'm saying? Like, if the internet exists, I'm not just going to sit around and wait for somebody or somebody's going to tell me no. I'm going to do better media, and I'm going to impact politics. And I want to, be a better version of what I see lacking. And if everyone did that to some extent in their lives, the country would be in a better place. This is where I disagree with some Christians. I think Christians forever have always thought it was going to be the end times, and 99% of times they're wrong, and times don't end, but you get got often if you don't do anything. So part of the end times, Christians always think it's the end times. Sometimes they allow it to just get destroyed, and they're like, oh, this is the moment. It might not be the moment. You might just be lazy or weak or pathetic, and pathetic and weak and lazy people get conquered by way smarter tribes that are playing way different games. So it's like, Christians nowadays, they just sit and false prophesize and act like this and that. And it's like they're just getting steamrolled. But the end of the world could be in 10 years. It could be in a year. It could be in a million years. I'm not saying it is. It's just like, sitting around and false prophesizing is basically manifesting your own demise. And it might not be the end times demise. It might be like the now demise. So that's just how I see my faith. That's how I see God, and my role is like, I don't believe I'm called to sit around and lie to myself. I don't believe I'm called to sit around and false prophesize. I believe that I can, do something. And that's what I'm trying to do, not make excuses for myself or other people. Of course, I make excuses for myself. I'm not perfect. And it's like, but at the end of the day, it's like, I know, I'm not going to be like, oh, Trump, God sent Trump here to sell vaccines and infringe on the Constitution against Christianity for Christians. Like, that's not what the evidence is showing me. Maybe when it's all said and done, he'll do a U-turn, but it's like, I don't think my role is to just be a spectator and watch my country fall apart. I don't think that's beneficial to me or Christians in any way. And I don't think it's biblical, but there's always going to be a discussion and a debate about that. Christians never used to think this way. I mean, the one guy super chatted it, but for thousands of years, Christians defended themselves. They supported themselves. They knew when they were getting destroyed, and they stopped it. It's not like, imagine if Christians in like the thousands and the 1600s, 1500s, they just sat there and they're like, oh yeah, destroy all my stuff and Jesus will come back. They never did that. They always defended themselves. They always defended their countries. They always valued their principles. It's only the 1900s that those got wiped away. Like, this is the anomaly, is now everything's getting wiped away. Sorry, my slippers fell out. I was trying to put them back on. Now everything's getting wiped away for the first time in history, and Christians are like, oh, this is my role. It's like, it's only happening because you guys are so pathetic. Like, easily everyone could have done that. Martin Luther could have done that, and all the legendary Christians of the past could have just sat there and been like, oh yeah, just conquer me. And that, like, no, like that's a new Christian phenomenon. And it's not all, but a large portion of it is from the 1900s. And it is, I believe, foreign policy manipulation to basically just use Christians as like attack dogs and little dum-dums to just give everything to other people and have no problem with it. That's what I think is going on. So it is what it is. Someone said, you lost me, like you lost my live stream or what? Or what? You lost what, Vine? I don't know. Did it go out? Someone said Joel Osteen sucks at teaching the Bible. Well, I don't really listen to him, so I have no idea. He's got some interesting clips I've seen, but I'm not like it's not my church. Someone said dispensationalism has only been around since the 1800s, which explains the complacency on the part of Christians. I mean, you can almost directly correlate that. I mean, correlation's not causation, or causation's not correlation, but you could see when that ideology came in and when Christianity was completely stripped out of Christian countries. Like, it's really not that hard to figure out. I'll even say this, like, I don't care. Like, I'm American. I'm loyal to America. Russia, Ukraine, Israel, Palestine, Italy, Poland. Like, I'm loyal to America. These are not all these other countries are not my country. It doesn't mean I hate them. It just means I'm American. With that being said, it's not hard to notice the pattern. Name, like, every European country is being completely stripped of Christianity. Okay. Name the most Christian European country. Most of them are in Eastern Europe, which is probably the strongest and biggest empire that is still Christian or Catholic. Russia. Who does the American regime want to fight? Russia. Through who? Ukraine, which is now becoming less and less Christian and more like San Francisco with all their weird speech laws. So it's like, it's not really that hard to figure out what's going on. American politicians, left wing and right wing, are basically just brainwashing Republicans into destroying themselves, like, all around the world. And then after you destroy all the conservatives in the world, then they come for you, and that's what happened in 2020. And now it's like they used you as little dumb attack dogs during the Bush era, and you believed what they were doing to fight Osama or whatever, and then they got him, blah, blah, blah. And next thing you know, you're just wiping out Christians in the Middle East, wiping out Muslims, not even knowing what you're doing or why. You believe all the propaganda lies. And then as soon as they destabilize every country in the world, then they destabilize America. Now we're in a lockdown. Now they're printing trillions of dollars. Now they're, weaponizing you to go fight some other wars for other countries. And it's like, they're just sending you around the world to kill Christians and make everybody gayer. Like, I'm not trying to be rude, but it's like, everywhere we go needs to just get gayer. It's like, that's America's foreign policy. Oh, look, there's Muslims that aren't gay enough. Make them gayer. Oh, there's Christians here. Oh, let's displace them and pretend like we didn't. Look at the numbers of Syria. Look how many Christians were in Syria before the war. Look how many Christians are in Syria after the war. American foreign policy kills and displaces Christians. And I'm not saying that it's okay to do that to any religion or race. I'm just saying, like, that's just objectively what's going on. And you never hear about it in the media. And then Tucker Carlson covers it one time for the first time in 5 years, and everybody starts calling him anti-Semitic, including conservatives. Look at the conservatives that are furious at the fact that he talked about Christians in Israel, because Christians are just supposed to go die in foreign wars. Christians are just supposed to attack themselves. Christians are just supposed to ignore everything that's going on. Christians are supposed to have no community whatsoever, and you're just supposed to give money to everybody else and get called hateful for doing it. It's like, it's like, that's what they want you to do. And that's what most Christians do. So when you don't do that, even your own people turn against you. You know what I'm saying? Your own side, your own political party. I don't even know Thomas Massey's religion, but Thomas Massey was he's first of all, the only Republican that's against all foreign aid because he's libertarian, but he's the only one who talked about the COVID-19 lockdowns, and Trump tried to kick him out of the party. He's also the only one who votes against anti-Semitism speech laws, the only one in the Republican Party. Do you think it's a coincidence that he's the only one and he was the only one right about COVID-19? It's not a coincidence. He's not a liar. He's the only person in Congress not lying. There's a reason why he's right about most topics, because he's not lying. He's not selling out to lobbyists. He's just telling you what he actually thinks. Even Marjorie Taylor Greene and Matt Gaetz, they'll all cave on certain topics all the time. It's like, he's not like so much smarter than everybody else in Congress. It's not like his IQ is the highest. He probably is really smart, but he's the most ethical. And he gets called anti-Semitic constantly for having the same policy for every foreign country. Doesn't that tell you what the role of America is? You're just supposed to send your money, or else they're going to call you anti-Semitic all the time. It's the reality of our foreign policy. And then Trump will try to kick you out. Oh yeah, I bet Trump's kicking Thomas Massey out of the party for Jesus, right? Jesus wants all that. Jesus probably loves Pfizer and Moderna. It's like, no, like, that's not my version of Christianity. But if you want to be a false prophet and make believe all these things because you're too weak and fake to cope with what's really happening, then you could lie to yourself, but you're not going to lie to me. You understand? You could say whatever you want to yourself and whoever wants to listen. But at the end of the day, a lot of these same people were like, oh, Trump's got it under control. Mandatory vaccines aren't coming. And then they came. Who was right? Me. Why? Because I'm not lying. I'm not lying to myself. I'm not coping. I'm not hallucinating fake plots and using Christianity as a shield. Be like, Jesus told me to say that. He probably didn't tell you to say that. It's probably just like a way to get people to believe you. Someone said Proverbs 13/4, lazy people want much but get little, but those who work hard will prosper. The diligent make use of everything they find. Absolutely. And at the end of the day, like that's my battle this year. And in general, like my battle's with myself. I could do more. I've been getting back on the right track in certain ways. I've been working out more, trying to do more stuff. But at the end of the day, it's like our battles are with ourselves, you know, like, are you going to be lazy? Are you not? And with me, I don't think I'm lazy, but I can't tell sometimes because I've worked so hard my whole life that it was almost unsustainable. And I had to switch up the way I work or else I didn't feel like I was going to be able to do it. This year, I feel a lot better. I feel like I'll be able to do this for a long time, but I was like doing too much and burning myself out. So it's like, I'm trying to conserve more energy, but then I still think about it and I'm like, am I being lazy? Could I be doing more? Should I be doing more? You know, it's definitely hard sometimes. Craig said, I watched you many years ago, even bought a hat. It's been a long time. Great to see you still speaking truth and standing on business, bro. Thank you, Craig. Thanks for being here. Someone said Anomaly's a real Christian. I'm not playing that game. I'm not saying I'm real, you're fake, because everyone makes mistakes. Everyone does stuff, but I'm not sitting here calling people fake Christians or saying I'm more Christian. I'm not playing that game. I'm just saying personally, I don't try to prophesize over who Trump is, because there's a lot of people who claim he's the Antichrist under the guise of Christianity. And there's a lot of people who claim that he's the next King Cyrus. Millions of Christians are claiming both sides. That means millions of Christians are false prophesizing one way or the other. I don't want to do it. I think if you're going to prophesize, you need to know what you're talking about. You need to be accurate, because at the end of the day, God knows. You know what I'm saying? God knows. Like, you could tell this person or that person, but if you're like, Jesus told me to take your money and say Trump's going to be back in the White House, like, he didn't say that. You're lying to Christians under the name of like the Bible, which is even more blasphemous. Like, at least just lying is just lying. Like, false prophesizing is a whole different thing. Someone said Jesus called out Cain. I'm not claiming to be more Christian. I'm just saying that's my rule. I don't false prophesize. I don't say I'm 100% sure when I'm not. And I don't ignore evidence, logic, reason, and basic reality and say that that's God doing that. Like, in my opinion, I believe God is punishing. I'm not saying I'm for sure it's a prophecy, but like, I just think logically, God is punishing America. America's falling apart because America is spiritually empty. The liberals have no faith. The Republicans are, completely subservient to a foreign country and a group of people that is not their religion. And I'm not saying every conservative's religious, but even if you go to like constitutional or basic principles of libertarianism and conservatism, the leaders don't represent that at all. Donald Trump is a pharmaceutical socialist who shares none of the values that you claim to be had. That's why America's falling apart. Like, God's not going to bless a country that's just causing devastation and causing just chaos all over the world and wants to make, Ukraine into San Francisco and then let BlackRock rebuild it. Like, God's not going to bless that. So I don't feel like we're a victim of the left. I feel like the right is just as bad as the left, and that we're never going to get blessed again until we stop doing the wrong thing. And that's the thing with other countries. And this is, maybe this is too far for some, but even with Trump, when he was more honest, it felt like he had more favor. Since he's not, it feels like, he lost favor. And I'm not claiming to know this for sure, but like, when Trump wasn't being so sneaky, he kept winning. As soon as he started selling vaccines and doing Operation Warp Speed and being like a pharmaceutical socialist, like a scumbag, all of a sudden he didn't win. All of a sudden he got in more trouble. All of a sudden, people started listening to other leaders. So it's like, nobody's above God, not me, not Trump. Nobody's perfect, but you can't do like horrific stuff on a broad scale like Trump was doing and expect to get the favor of God. I don't believe that at all. And I believe the fact that everybody, including Christians, just keep kissing his ass when he's doing it is like a bad friend. It would be like Trump smoking crack and then being like, yeah, keep smoking crack, Trump. You have a plan. He's like, you sure? This is my 15th crack pipe today. And you're like, yeah, Trump, keep smoking it because that's the plan. Trust the plan. Like, that's what people are to Trump. They're like telling him to do this stuff and defending it. And I think it's just spiraling the whole movement and the country further and further. Yes, the left is horrible too, but I don't believe in the theory that God is going to bless America. God blessed America when America was worth blessing. The country's not getting blessed now because we're horrifically propagandizing our own kids. The food industry is disgusting in this country. Pharmaceutical industry is beyond evil. Both parties work for them. And we support a foreign policy of basically trying to go after Christians and Muslims and turn them into San Francisco, and then tricking Christians into thinking that's good, and then tricking them into thinking like tens of thousands of casualties of like random people is somehow justified. Like, yeah, I don't see the blessings coming anytime soon until people wake up. So, I assume the country's just going to keep falling apart until people switch up their mindset. So, I don't know when that comes or how, but I believe that, God would bless America again when America is a blessed country doing blessed things and at least attempting to do good things, not what we're doing now. It's not moral. It's not just. And, as great as America is in some ways with economy and some of our liberty-based principles, and, the people here are great, America is not one of the best countries anymore. It's not one of the most ethical or moral countries. And it's starting to slip further and further away from that because our leaders are so insane and our culture is so insane. So it's like, listen to the music in the 50s and 60s and 70s and listen to it now. Like, America is like demonically possessed. Like, I don't know what God's thinking, but I can't imagine he's like loving our culture right now. I'm sure I would guess it would be like, yeah, this is not good. It could be better. So that's where my loyalties lie, is trying to not just improve myself, but, with the work I do, everybody, regardless of what they're doing, like, everyone's got to work. Like, I don't want to work and be part of the problem. I don't want to just be another sellout politician or another sellout news analyst. Like, I'm trying to be a part of the solution. Of course, I'm not perfect. I'm not saying my life is flawless and whatever. I'm not claiming perfection, but with my time and energy, like, do I try to do the right thing or the wrong? I'm trying to do the right thing, and not the right in the eyes of demonic people or in the eyes of society. Like, right, what I know is right, regardless of what they call me or what's popular or not. I don't know any other way at this point. So it is what it is, but that's what America needs to do. Not rally behind a pharmaceutical socialist and like live vicariously through someone scamming them. Be someone worthy of being. Do something worthy of doing. Be the change you want to see in the country. Like, some people are doing it and it will shift the country, but I think the politicians, they know how to keep the conversation where they want the conversation. 2 years were wasted fighting over Trump and DeSantis. It didn't matter at all. Like, yeah, DeSantis did better on COVID. Trump is funnier and more interesting, and he's hard to beat. Trump pathologically lied about DeSantis in the sense of like gaslighting everybody on the COVID stuff. And it worked to perfection because Republicans have no moral compass, and they just literally would probably, sniff the farts out of his butt and say that it was Lysol. Actually, Lysol would be bad to sniff, maybe like a, holistic perfume. But in general, it's like, but even though I disagreed with both of them on certain things, I didn't spend a year arguing in circles with people over it like I'm an animal. Like, that's what Republicans did. They're just wasting time. Every Republican I listen to, it just sounds like a giant time waste. They're not talking about anything of value. Everything's like, 5 layers to surface level where it's never going to change. It's just yelling and look at the left. It's like, sure, but I see it a little at a deeper level personally. Someone said stick to local politics. I mean, you could do national politics. Just this is what it comes down to for me, at least. It's like, I don't look at something like, if someone sells out the First Amendment or gives $20 billion to the pharmaceutical industry, I don't think Jesus put me here to just lie about that. I don't, that's not my religion. I'm sorry. I'm not even saying I'm put here to do that. It's just like, I don't look at pharmaceutical socialism and say, oh, that's good because I like that guy. In my opinion, these are weak people saying that. I don't care if you're an influencer. I don't care if you've made millions of dollars. You're weak to me, and I'm not a weak man. So, if you act that way, you get the results you get. You might get a book deal or a gig or $1 million, but you're still not me, and you're still not a person that I respect. And, you might be able to trick a lot of people, but you're not tricking me. So it is what it is. I don't compare myself in the sense of like envy or jealousy. I just do me, and, we all get the results that we deserve and that we earn. So, things that people are going for different stuff though. Sometimes people see me and they say, my religion is rap. It's absolutely not. But anyway, they'll be like, oh, like this is your year. You're going to do all these things. And it's like, you don't even know me or what I want. Like you assume that I want more. Like I don't want any of those things. The only reason I ever want attention, like from Ben Shapiro or Matt Walsh, is I want them to stop covering up the First Amendment infringement. If they could do that, I would ignore them completely. I don't need attention. I just am calling attention to myself because I know I could out debate them and barely anybody's talking about it. So it's like if they could fix those things, I don't really care. I'm not looking for more fame. I don't want what these other people want. I'm not looking like, money is nice in the sense of like it's security. And the more money you have, you could buy property, you could travel, you could take breaks, you could support your family. Like money is valuable for that reason. I don't think you should go chasing it at all costs and sell out. That's evil. But I don't do that. But at the same time, it's like, I'll just be honest. And I've told people this before. The money is more appealing to me than the fame and the attention or the glory or whatever. I've already got the glory. I already got 1 billion views. I'm already respected. I'm already well known. I don't really need more of it. I just don't want to see so many lies all the time. So I'll inject myself. To be honest, I actually don't like over too much attention is kind of creepy, and it could be a little like just off-putting because it's like too much. It's too much energy for anyone to intake on social media. But at the same time, I'm not just going to sit here and get along to get along while the country is falling apart. So the money is more valuable to me because it's actually like I could buy property and take a break. People like they just come to me and they think like, oh, you want this or you want that. Not really. No, I don't look at stuff like I want more of this. I'm like, not really. That's what most people want though. That's why that's what they get. Like if you want money and fame more than you want the First Amendment, you get that. There's money there to be made. I could think of 10 influencers off the top that have probably made over $1 million, and they'll never talk about this First Amendment infringement because they know that their life would get harder if they talked about it. So they don't talk about it. That's a person who wants money and fame and opportunities and podcasts more than they want what they claim to want. So what is that person? They're a sellout to me. You know what I'm saying? Like that's not success to me. That's evil. Like success isn't like, wow, you sold out a stadium. Doing what though? If you're selling out a stadium, doing like demon worshiping and dressing up as Satan, that's not success. That's failure to me. That's like failure on a grand scale. That's spiritual failure. I don't think success is that. It's not like you want to be broke, but at the same time, it's just like that's why these things continue, because that's what most people want. And they think that I want that because they want that, but I don't really want that. If you gave me the option of like, I do want to like have an impact, but to be honest, I don't know. If you said you could have this money without selling out, but you won't get as much attention, I would prefer that. It would be nice to still be able to make an impact and do other stuff and work on projects. But like I don't really care that much anymore about that stuff. Maybe I used to at one point, but it's just like I'm tagging Matt Walsh on Twitter because I want him to talk about this topic because no one talks about this topic. And I know he's the only one who has or even would. It's not like, oh, I need to get on this podcast. Don't ask me a single personal question. Ask me about these speech laws. Tell these conservatives that follow you about what's going on. Save the First Amendment. Don't allow our politicians to infringe on it. Don't allow them to sell out our religion. It's insane. I don't want to sell out any religion, but it's like, why would our religious leaders be passing laws against our religion? That's what I care about. That's what I'm passionate about. That's what gets me making stuff. I barely make Instagram videos anymore because it's just like, what am I going to talk about? Do I want to get in an argument on Instagram? I posted something about something about Trump on Facebook, and everybody's just arguing with me on a Sunday. It's like, I don't want to argue anymore. I want to say stuff, but like talking about real topics, everyone gets mad at you, or a large portion of people get mad at you. It's better to just keep it surface level. Stupid. You know what I'm saying? Like Joe Biden sucks. Yeah. Okay. That gets 500 shares. And, I like Joe Biden memes too. It's funny, but like, it doesn't matter, but like, that's the safe place. It's just like simple memes and like, Benny Johnson style posts, but any sort of like self-reflection for our party, like, hey, like, I think we're getting scammed. Then it's like, everyone gets mad at you. They start yelling. It's like, it's not fun for me, but everything's not always fun. Thank you. It's just me. I appreciate it. Catherine said, Anomaly, you're part of the real alternative media. I appreciate you. I saw David Icke. He's always saying like mainstream alternative media and calling them phonies. He's retweeted me a few times. I've never talked to David Icke. We've never messaged or anything, but I thought that was cool that he retweeted me because he's always crapping on fake alternative media. And to be honest, he's right. I mean, we differ in opinions. We're not exactly identical in our analysis, but you know, David strikes me as someone who's trying to do the right thing. I don't know that he's always 100% accurate, but you know, he's an interesting fella, that guy. Someone said they said defund the police while wearing cop hats. Probably. Someone said beer gives men boobies. I've heard that. Tom said, I wish I found Anomalies content in 2020. It's interesting when I meet people because like certain people know me from other things. Like some people, they'll be like, oh, so did you just start during COVID? And I was like, no. But other people are like, oh, you only got famous off of Trump. How dare you turn on Trump when he infringes on the First Amendment? You got to agree with it. Agree. I'm like, no. So, you know, everybody found me at a different time. So some people have known me for years. Some people have been following since before I even talked about Trump. Some people know my music for 10 years. Others, you know, they only found me during COVID and they had no idea I even ever talked about Trump. That's the funny part about COVID is like, yeah, I don't disagree. I got very successful during the Trump years by doing accurate analysis on how the media was lying about Trump. It's true. He was a huge part of my success and I'm grateful, you know, but also, you know, I helped him. He helped me. Like it wasn't bad for him having someone like me get hundreds of millions of views defending him when he wasn't wrong. Like, and I stand by what I said. I wasn't wrong. I mean, you're not going to find very many videos of me being wrong because I'm not lying. Some things age extraordinarily well. Most do. Maybe some don't. You know, maybe my earlier like 2017 videos, they were a little more like basic and TPUSA style. But at the end of the day, I probably got bigger than that during COVID. Like more people come up to me and know me from COVID than they even know me from Trump. And the reason is it's like when I was doing the Trump thing, there's certain people that it's like that's all they have. Like Terrence Williams or something. Like he's very successful and famous. Terrence Williams, really nice guy, funny guy. Like I love Terrence Williams. It's just he's like a Trump fan, you know, like that's all he has. Like he's got to just be like Trump, you know, like he's got nothing else to really like. It's not like COVID. He was giving these in-depth analysis of what's going on. It was just like basic Trump, you know, regurgitation or whatever with like little jokes and stuff. I mean, it's fine. It's just like, that's not who I am. That's not what I did. And in 2020, you know, more people found me then than even found me through the Trump years, I think, because I was providing analysis. I earned it. It's not like I rode the back of it. I told the truth about Trump. People liked it. Then I told the truth about COVID and people liked it. It's like the people that grift off of Trump. And I'm not saying Terrence, he's a nice guy. I'm just saying like they're not loyal. They're just like doing all they know how to do. And it's like, that's all that really matters. Like it's braver to point out the things that he's doing wrong because they're not little things. It's not like, oh, Dwight Eisenhower just like, you know, did this $10 mistake. It's like printing trillions of dollars and making us poor for 20 years and then selling us out to the pharmaceutical industry and infringing on the First Amendment. These aren't small things. These are they only seem small to people that are so brainwashed by the left-right paradigm that they don't realize how crazy this is and how this never could have flown before Trump. That's one of my theories. Like one of my theories is like, I want Donald Trump to win the election because he'll close the wall. And for an American, the border needs to be closed. They really need to crack down on illegal immigration, and they need to get the legal system making sense. You can't have tens of millions of illegals everywhere. Like a country doesn't function economically, financially. It just doesn't work that way. It's no disrespect, it's just true. One of my theories is I want Trump to win to close the border and hopefully do that. Another theory I have is that Trump is such a useful idiot-controlled opposition that when Republicans are in, sometimes they infringe on the First Amendment more than the Democrats. If the Democrats talk about it, Republicans do it, and Republicans only provide opposition when Democrats are in office. When Republicans are in office, they don't really do anything. So it's like, you know, on one hand, I really want Trump to win the election to close the border. On one hand, I really don't care anymore. On another hand, it's like, what is it going to take for Republicans to wake up? 4 more years of Trump, 4 more years of Biden, 4 years of chaos, 4 years of success? I'm not really sure, but it's like I'm caring less and less because I'm not sure. I used to think, yeah, Trump is the better option, obviously. I don't know now. Like, if he could close the border and actually do immigration and not do that much different from what Biden's doing and like do some actual good stuff in other categories, then yeah, definitely worth it. But if he does the same things as the uniparty again, does something extraordinarily horrific like the lockdown and the vaccine pharmaceutical 2020, he's actually not better. You could even make an argument for as bad as Biden or Obama was, Trump in 2020 did worse than Obama. That year was horrific, and he's proud of it. He's like, oh, Obama did a bad job during swine flu. Swine flu didn't lock the country down. No, he did a better job during swine flu. If Obama would have locked the country down and sold vaccines, then yeah, then he did a terrible job. But like, you did a worse job, and you act like your bad mistakes are the greatest accomplishments you've ever done. Like, I don't know who Trump is. Is he a guy trying his best, or is he a total shill? Like, because it's like his first 3 years were better, but his fourth year destroyed the country. I don't want to repeat myself, but the economy was in shambles. It's not going back. The interest rates are going to change a little. They're probably not going back to what they were, but it's like you don't come back from that. It's going to take a long time to come back from that, if you ever come back from that. But the prices aren't going back. This idea that I just want Trump back so the prices get lower, he's the reason they're high. If he won the election and Biden never came, the prices were going to be this high too. Biden's not helping, but it's not like the damage wasn't done. It's unreal that people don't see this. So it's like their premise is like, oh, I know all these things about Trump, but like, he'll fix the economy. He destroyed the economy. What are you talking about? Well, he'll put the prices back. How? He's not. Brian said, happy Sunday. Sorry, I'm getting a little thirsty. I might have to end the stream soon. I don't think the institutions are capable of introspection. Institutional scrutiny can only be done by opposing factions. We, the people, is supposed to be a check on power. Keep it up. I agree. And also, this is true too. You can't just blame, I know what you're saying, because I agree, but like the government and corporations, like, it's people. There's millions of non-institutional human beings that call themselves Democrats and Republicans that are completely incapable of introspection. So how can we expect a corporation or the government to have introspection when we don't even have introspection? That's why that is the solution. When people ask what the solution is, there's tens of millions of Trump supporters and tens of millions of Trump haters that lack self-awareness and have no introspection at all. And they have no systemic power. They just don't, they can't like lower their ego to be self-aware to see what's going on. If we, the people, have no introspection, there's no way the corporations and the government are going to have introspection, because often these are extensions of us. The government is people, corporations are people, but at the same time, if most of the country has no introspection, then there's no way the corporations and government are going to have introspection. And once the people get introspection, they're going to want to hire people with introspection, and they're going to want to, criticize politicians who don't have it. So this is all stemming from, I think, just most people can't see through it. And I don't really know what to do, because I think that this is a human problem. And one of the life hacks, I believe, is having introspection, having self-awareness. And this is where, some people talk about hallucinogens and some people talk about spirituality. And obviously people talk about Christ and God. And I'm not saying that they're the same. I'm not comparing God to hallucinogens, but I'm just saying, like, that old saying of like, when you see someone calm and they're talking about the way or Tao Te Ching or being so spiritual in the present moment, or Eckhart Tolle, or, these are all basically preaching self-awareness, so like, have awareness of yourself. Once you know yourself and you're honest with yourself, the whole world changes around you. And I that changed my life extraordinarily, is learning this. There's a fighter, Yuri Prohashka. He talks about it because they said he was a fake samurai. He's this Czech Republic guy, but he says, I live in the way. I'm almost positive he's talking about the way, like Tao Te Ching or Taoism. But it's like, even if you reject Taoism because of your religion, you have to understand it. It's not simply just about that book or another religion, because that's not my religion. It's about the principles of self-awareness and self-accountability. And if you have it, it's a superpower. It's the root of not playing the victim. You play the victim when you don't have accountability, like knowing who you are, living in the present moment, being right there, right now, not in another place, not in a clouded thought. It's the same as like stimulating your body or fixing your body to be stronger. And like, if your back hurts and you're fat, it's like, well, it could be a problem. But also if you weren't so fat and you worked out, I've been working out my back more this year. It hurts less than it did last year. It's like, that's because I did something about it. You know, I'm taking steps to do things that help it. But in general, for your mental health, it's the same thing. If you have 1,000 tabs open in your brain all the time, you're going to stress yourself out like a computer. It's too much to do. If you can lower that and be in the present moment, get your stuff done, but be conscious of like, okay, I can't be all over the place all the time. Because then if you're at a dinner meeting and you're on your phone and you're here or there, now you're a miserable person to have at dinner. Like nobody wants to sit at dinner with someone that's on their phone every 2 seconds. It's like you're ruining the present moment by being all over the place instead of here now. If everybody had this, like, you know, the world would be a better place. But even if they don't, that's the blessing of being in the moment and being self-aware, is you don't need everyone else. Like, you know, that's external. Like, I want this person to do this. I want this person to change. I want, like, being okay with the way things are and just making it happen. It creates this flow state where you're really there and you're really cooking. So I think, like, at the end of the day, it's not about everyone needs to do this because I want them to do it. It's like, well, as long as I do it and I'm here and I'm making, then I'll get the results that are good for me. And for my career, I think that's the number one most beneficial thing I've ever done. You know, outside of investment or this or that, was my mindset shift, not playing the victim, not thinking that way, thinking about what I can do. And this year I tried to get back to it, because it doesn't matter how broke or rich you are. You can not be in the present moment. You could be like thinking about a bunch of things when you're broke, or if you're middle class or whatever, or rich, then you're thinking about these other things, or you think you don't have to do that because you have the money. And it's like, it doesn't matter who you are or where you are. If you can tap into the present moment and consciousness and like self-awareness, it's a superpower. You know, it's how you become more honest. If you have no self-awareness, you're not going to be honest, because you're lying to yourself. That's what self-awareness is. I'm not perfect. I'm not acting like I'm a flawless person, but you can't tell me something about myself that I don't know. A person who lacks self-awareness, they're constantly lying to themselves and others about all that stuff. Where if you say the truth to me, I already know it about myself. If you say the truth to someone who lacks self-awareness, they get mad at you and they act like it's not there, you know, because they won't even admit that that's how it is. So they're lying to themselves about themselves. I know it's kind of confusing, but I do think that when you see everything through that lens, everything becomes easier to filter, because you're not going to get tricked by someone lying. You're not going to get scammed by a politician, because you're not depending on them. And, you know, if you read a lot of these like self-help spiritual books, they'll talk about how expectations lead to, being pessimistic. And they talk about how in order to be good, there needs to be a bad, and like everything is perception. So it's like, you don't want to fight it, but you just want to go with the way. And it's an interesting thought process. I'm not saying you have to completely follow it, but it's interesting when you look at things that way, because you know, you just start moving at a different pace. I think seeing things in an interesting light, and then it's just going to be harder to trick you, because you're not looking at everyone how you want them to be. You're looking at them as they are, you know. And that's with Trump. People want him to be who they want him to be. You know, they're not looking at politicians who they are and what they're doing. They're looking at what they want it to do. Like, you know, if they're taking donor money, I don't want them to take donor money. That's expectation. That's desire. Your desire is a politician who doesn't sell out. So when Trump sells out, you don't want to believe that it's happening, because you want results in America and you want freedom, but you don't want to believe that Trump would do that. You know, it's all expectations, and it's all not being honest with yourself that leads people to basically hallucinate what they wish was happening, instead of just being okay with what's happening. And then it gets to the point where they spiral at you, because like their life revolves around thinking that. So the second that you shatter that paradigm, has nothing to do with them. You know, you're not even talking about them, not saying a bad thing about them. They spiral because they project who they are onto that person, because they have expectations and desires for what they want to happen. And they don't want to actually do anything in their own lives. They just want to believe that this politician's doing it. So simply challenging that belief of theirs and expectation makes them spiral and take it as a personal attack. Simply speaking the truth about something Trump did that people don't want to hear is like a personal attack on themselves. And then they go, well, what's your solution? As if you just shattered their whole paradigm because they want so bad to believe that this thing is true. I've never really been that way. I mean, obviously I have had beliefs, but David Icke used to talk trash about Trump. I never thought, oh, I hate him. Oh, he's attacking me. I'm just like, he doesn't trust Trump. I do. I'm okay with that. He's making a lot of sense, but I don't know. I'll give Trump the benefit of the doubt. I'm patient. I always told myself I'm patient. And then when Trump's administration played out, I was like, I was patient. It didn't turn out the way I wanted to. Not feeling it, you know? Not saying I like Biden. I'm just saying I don't like it. That's like hearing another thought, not fighting it so much, you know? That's what I'm trying to do. But anyway, hopefully that made sense. I think some people got it, but I do think that all the issues in politics and in America, it doesn't start with the government or the corporation. Like, I don't think that it's the government's fault. I know libertarians do, but it's like the government is people. People get elected because people don't care, you know, or they only have two sides to choose. If you only have two sides to choose and you know that both sides are not going to do it, now you have to be reasonable and logical and say, well, that means that I'm not going to vote my way out of it. Don't get it twisted. I'm not telling you not to vote. Go vote. If you want to vote, go vote. But you're not going to vote your way out of this. I'm not saying not to vote for Trump or vote for Republicans or vote for whoever you want. Go vote if you feel inspired to vote. Go ahead. It matters, but not as much as you think it does. So it's like that's the combination of I'm not giving people a message of hopelessness and telling them not to vote, but voting isn't going to fix it. We're not voting ourselves out of this. That's the truth. It doesn't mean we're done. It just means you have to face that truth. And then if enough people face that truth, now we're all sitting here realizing it's true. And the politicians, they take our money, they take our votes, they take our attention. Without our attention, our votes, and our money, there is no Turning Point USA. There is no Trump. There is no, show. It's all based on you. If no one watched Fox News or MSNBC, they don't exist. And that's happening to a lot of mainstream media. They're getting irrelevant, which is a good thing in my opinion. So it's like we have power, but our power is in our consciousness and in our awareness and just calling it like you see it. That is my solution. When enough people do that, that's when the parties will change. It's not going to be by voting and lying to yourself about that. That's the opposite of the solution, in my opinion. On a personal scale, you can't change everybody's opinion all the time. You just got to do what you can do to be the best version of yourself. And that's like a personal goal. And the truth is, the world's never been perfect. It's not like everybody has this false understanding of like, oh, remember before this, it was really perfect. Like it also wasn't though, like there were things that were better, but the world was never perfect. Like there was always bank robbers and there was always like, people stealing your cattle when you crossed a river and thieves. And, these things have happened since the beginning of time. I mean, just look at the stories in the Bible. It's like, it's never been perfect. So you got to be appreciative for some things while being realistic about others, because as great as things are or as bad as they are, it could always be better. It could always be worse. I think it's okay to be grateful, but I do see the direction the country's going in. I think if you ask most liberals or most Republicans, everyone would say it's going in the wrong direction. Everyone sees it. Like, is San Francisco better than it was 10 years ago? No, nobody thinks that it is, even Democrats. So it's like, I'm optimistic, but I'm not going to act like I want to go to Portland or Seattle. I don't want to go there. I think they're shithole cities, for lack of a better word, and they need to clean up. That's me being loving and being like, clean your city and I'll go back. I'm not saying the people are bad, but it's not a desirable place to go right now. So is what it is. But yeah, just for those, because I get 30,000 times a week, what's the solution? What's the solution? What's the solution? It's like, that is my personal political solution, but I don't know how long it's going to take. I don't know when people want to face that. I just do know this. When I look at people that are just retweeting basic Republicans and basic statements, it's not that I hate the person. I'm not a crazy liberal. I just see them kind of like a left-winger tweeting stuff where I'm like, man, people really got to snap out of this paradigm in order to figure this stuff out. And it's, with the next election, we'll see the debates, we'll see what Trump says, etc. But I guess I'm just like, I'm not thinking so much about following and listening to politicians as much as I am concepts and things that I know that are true, regardless of what Trump or Biden says. The truth, about certain things. So like, why does what you think and what you do have to like rely on what they said or what they did. I think it's time that people start working. And that's what I've tried to do this year, cover topics and do things that matter to me. They might not be popular. They might be popular, but it's like, what am I inspired to say? It's not defending this person or that person from Trump and Biden. Like I'm over like that whole like game that they're playing. I'll still defend Trump when it's the right thing to do, but I'm more like trying to push concepts forward that I think are more important. But I'm exhausted. I stay way too long. I haven't done a show in a couple of days, so I figured I'd do a big one. But appreciate you guys. Thanks for being here. I'll probably do a show tomorrow, possibly not. I'm not really sure, but that was the one for today. Hopefully people liked it. Thanks for staying. And some people watch it at the beginning and say like, oh, how am I supposed to watch 3 hours? And it's like, you definitely don't have to. But one of the cool things about the live stream is people can come and go. Like some people will only watch for 20 minutes or 30 minutes at the end, and that's totally fine. So I don't necessarily do these so like everyone has to watch them all. If you want to know the title of the video, like if you're late to it and you're like, what is this about? You really only have to watch the first 10, 20 minutes so you can figure that out. And then if you want the whole rest of it, that's cool too. But I would just say for people when you come in late, like don't get scared by like the 3 hour thing. I'm not asking people to watch 3 hours. If you want to learn what the main point of my video is, just check the first 10, 15 minutes. That's really all you have to do if you just want to get the gist of that. So I know sometimes people are like, dude, I can't watch a 3 hour video. I was like, dude, I totally get it. You don't have to watch it at all. I wouldn't be offended, but it's just like, if you want to get the title, just watch the first 10 minutes. You'll figure it out. All right. Appreciate you guys. Someone said the last half hour was proper knowledge. Thank you. Well, that's why we do the last half hour. So appreciate you guys. Thank you for being here. I'll be back soon. And check out the shop, dreamrare.com. I don't know how many things are in stock. I haven't even checked Shopify. To be honest, I don't even know how many sales I've made over the last few weeks. I have a bunch of emails to answer. After tax day, I'm doing my taxes. I'll be freed up from that, but I've been adding up my own stuff. So it's been a lot. Appreciate you guys. Have a good one.
Hey, what's going on, my friends? Just a few ways to stay in touch and support if you'd like to. The first way is dreamrare.com. We have blue beanies, black beanies, pink hats, other colored hats, freedom versus tyranny shirts, stay blessed long sleeve, God is great long sleeve, and lots of more cool items coming soon. Dreamrare.com. Check out the shop to support. Everything's made in the United States. Handpicked by me. Patreon.com/raretalk. For $5 a month, you can help support me, support the show. If you haven't noticed, unlike other channels, I don't work with very many sponsors, sometimes none at all. And part of the way I'm able to do that is with the dreamrare.com shop and patreon.com/raretalk. So thank you guys for keeping this show free, unimpeded, uninterrupted,